Hey! This is another episode of UFO Garage.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Joe, and this is where we talk about UFOs, aliens, and all things weird. Cool, good stuff, man.
Oh yeah.
Going live tonight, the first time. We're gonna try this out, see how it works.
Oh yeah.
We got Terry Lovelace with us.
Oh yeah, dude.
Terry, man, how you doing, brother?
Couldn't be better, thanks. Pleasure to be back with you guys.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Hey, first off, man, before we even kick this off, man, hey, we just wanted to say thank you so much for giving us a little shout out in your new book, man. That's good
Hey,
stuff.
you guys deserve it.
Oh, man, thank you, man. I'll tell you what, man, when we started this thing 2 years ago, I would have never thought we'd be next to some of the names that we were next to in that book, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, well, you guys have had some great content.
Well, thank you very much, man.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you. We've been, we've been keeping our eyes and ears open, man, for awesome people, and it seems to be working out all right.
And there's a lot going on in the world right now.
There absolutely is, man. There absolutely is. We got your book on display back there in the background for everybody to see.
It's a little out of focus, but can you see it?
Oh yeah, the red one. Yes.
There's a little gnome back there that is.
Where's mine at?
It's kind of like our book stand.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Let me.
All right, there we go.
So those of you who, if you can't see the book back there, that's Terry Lovelace's new book, Incident at Devil's Den, The Reckoning. Terry, man, the book was awesome. It was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was thinking to myself, how is he going to top the first one? Because I loved the first one so much. If y'all haven't read the first one, Incident at Devil's Den, it's amazing. But you did it, man. You did it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes. I love all the extra detail and the extra stories and stuff like that you went into. And yeah, man, I can, writing that first book, what was your thought process? You explained it a little bit in the second one, but what was your thought process on like, okay, I'm going to tell my story to these people. And how much should I tell? I mean, what was that like?
You know, I almost left the last chapter out where I had the encounter with Betty, because I sent it to the editor and I said, man, I don't know if people are going to believe this. It's out there.
Yeah.
And my editor's like, man, you got a real story. You're the real deal. He said, leave it in. And I'm glad I did. But
Definitely.
it was a challenge to write, because I'm used to technical writing. I mean, I wrote briefs and stuff, and it's a totally different animal. And to go back to writing prose was a shift.
Well, dude, you're such a good writer. Like it was it's a very easy read.
Yeah, it really is. I feel like it's so descriptive, like painting a picture. Like some people spend way too much time like on the set and setting, but I feel like it's a nice balance of that. And it's also a good balance because of the content, because it's so honest, and it's just something that I've never heard. And I think a lot of people that are going through similar experiences is probably refreshing to read about the fact that you're so open about a lot of these experiences, man.
Yeah, I cracked 1,700 emails yesterday from people.
Wow. Jeez. Man.
And they deserve a lot of credit, because I got 30 cool stories that I collected from them in the back of the book.
Yeah. And that portion of the book is pretty lengthy, man.
Yeah, it's all about a third of the book or more.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Well, hey, before we get too deep into this, man, how you been? What have you been up to?
Yeah.
Couldn't be better. You know what I've been doing? I've been doing good Lord, I've been doing podcasts.
I bet.
Hell yeah.
I wanted to try my own. So we've got 4 episodes, I think, out of Devil's Den podcast.
Yes.
The problem I got is you guys have UFO in your name, and I need to change my name, because I got Devil's Den, and there's about 10,000 bars and motorcycle clubs in this country named Devil's Den. For search engine optimization, I'm kind of not in a good place. But
Well, if it makes you feel any better, before we started really rolling with the podcast, if you looked up UFO Garage, it was like these Russian guys that built crazy tanks with flamethrowers on it and stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool. So if you Google it and you find that, that's not us, but it's still very awesome, and you should totally watch it.
I'll do that.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. But yeah, so your podcast, you've been doing stuff with Erin Montgomery.
Yes.
She's super awesome. She's so awesome.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I met her at Roswell in 2018. The same year I published Incident at Devil's Den, and we kind of hit it off. We work good, like you guys. So Ben and Joe, you guys work together, and it kind of works for us.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a lot. It seems like I've never done it, but it seems like it's a lot of pressure to have to just do it by yourself. It's always good to have somebody to bounce ideas off of, and just kind of.
I think so.
Shoot the mess with, for sure.
Yeah, because when I'm sitting there, what do I got to say next? It's nice to have somebody there for backup. Somebody's got my back.
Yeah.
It's like trying to leave a message for somebody and you like really care about what you're gonna say. You're like, hey, just want to tell you, like, I've been thinking about you. Yeah, never mind. And then you hang up.
Awkward.
I tried calling into a radio station once, dude. This is before we started the podcast, and the question was like, what do you think about UFOs and aliens, and are they here? And I tried to really know my stuff, and I called into this radio station. It was one of those things where you leave a message and they would play it live, and I got halfway through the sentence and I just realized that I had no idea what I was talking about, and then I hung up. I don't know if they ever played it. I didn't listen to the radio station, so yeah,
Seemed like a good idea at the time.
It did. So I'm glad having somebody to bounce ideas off of and to help pick up that slack is always good.
Yeah, dude, I've always thought about calling in to like George Norrie or something like that, and just chatting. But I feel like as soon as I get on there, I'd be like, But George is a laid back dude. He's a cool guy. So
yeah.
He is chill. He is that.
Yeah. He's not like old school Art Bell where he'd be like, well, do you have something to say? or should we move on? Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. Yeah, George Norrie is just a great guy. He's from St. Louis, Missouri, where I'm from.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
That's cool. Have y'all ever had any run-ins before, like being from the same city?
No. Although we have a friend in common.
Oh, cool. Sick.
We both know a guy who was a bank executive. So we had a common friend. So kind of weird connection there.
Yeah, definitely. So you liking the podcasting and stuff like that? You enjoy doing it?
I do. It's a challenge to be on the other side of the microphone. I'm used to being the guest, and I feel like I have control being a guest, and I don't have any control being a host.
Right.
Because I don't know what they're going to say.
Yeah. Well, we Dave Scott told us something really cool, and he was like, if you're flying an airplane, who's in control? Or is it the pilot or is it the navigator? Like if you're the host of the show, who are you? Are you the pilot or are you the navigator? And you're like, oh well, you probably should be the navigator. And he's like, that's right. Like the pilot's the guy that's flying the thing, but you as the navigator are the one who's directing where the show is going. You let your guest kind of be the pilot, the big shot, the guy who's like, the face, And so I've always kind of like took that to heart after he said that. Like, yeah, that's right. We're not pilots, dude. We're navigators. We gotta navigate where we want this thing to go. So
that was Dave Scott's idea.
Yeah, it may have been somebody's previous to him, but
I think that's a great analogy, man. I really do. I agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, ever since he said that, I always kind of looked at it in a completely different light, So
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Well, dude, speaking of navigation, I actually went to Devil's Den and damn near almost got lost 2 weeks ago. And I'm telling you, man, it was pretty spooky.
It's a spooky place.
I had chills the whole time. I went with my wife and her little sister. She goes to college there, and I honestly didn't. I'm so bad at geography that I didn't realize that we were going like right next to, Fayetteville's right next to Devil's Den.
Yeah.
And so I passed the sign I posted on the Facebook. I'm like, hey, totally planned this. But like, yeah, we went on a hike, and luckily they have those little reflectors on the trees, because where we thought we were going, we did not end up at all. We found, and I was telling everybody like, hey, so I know that my buddy Terry Lovelace went to Devil's Den, and he said he found this kind of guarded off path that led to this meadow. So be on the lookout for guarded off paths and meadows. So it would have been awesome to find it. But
in a chain that says "Do not enter."
That yes. Yeah.
You know what? It's still there. It's still there as of 2 months ago.
Really?
Yeah. You know what? You can find it on Google Earth.
Yeah, you sent us. I think you sent us like an a bird's eye view of that Google Earth.
Yeah.
Location.
And a guy blew up the image and was able to find the chain across the road.
Whoa! What? That's cool.
That is awesome.
That's cool.
And it's still just a dirt road.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Wow. So, man, I mean, I don't know if we ever got anywhere close to where you were or whatever, but man, it was beautiful. There was like these canyons, little, I don't even know what you would call them, but you would be walking along the path, and all of a sudden you'd see these big, huge, dark tunnels that would go under the ground, little caverns that were like 80 foot tall. Like, it was pretty spooky, and you could feel the cool air coming out from the cave, I guess, that it led to. But yeah, man, it was a pretty cool place. I could see why you would want to camp there. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, don't get me wrong, but definitely had some chills on my arms when I was there.
Well, you knew where not to go, so that's important.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So I've never been back. I'm thinking I might want to go one day. I don't know.
Yeah. Man, yeah,
we want to go with you.
Dude, it's wild because as you know, we're doing this little documentary with Eric Mitchell, and we did some filming in the location of where all this happened, and man, he was such a trooper. Like he was really good about it, but he was definitely very tense. Like it was a very tense moment, and it's you could see it. Like he just got white as a ghost, and it was just wild because we had this little drone that we were using as well, and he's standing like in front of his old apartment and looking at this thing fly around him, and you could just, man, in the video you can see it on his face. He's just like, this is bringing back a lot of memories. So we try to make it a pretty quick little visit and shot and stuff like that. But he was a trooper about it. But he did it. He did it. Yeah. And it was really neat. So that might be something that for your own like just personal like satisfaction to just maybe not go there, but go to that area and just, I don't know, just take it in and breathe it out.
I think I'd like to do that in the daytime.
Definitely
in the daytime. Yeah,
definitely in the daytime.
Next June 11th will be the 45th anniversary.
Ooh.
So that's just kind of like begging for a visit.
I mean, that's a good number, man. I don't know. I think we should.
You guys got cameras?
Yes, we do have cameras. Dude.
You got a drone?
We do have a drone.
We got a drone. Terry, let's go up there, dude. We'll take some pictures. Take some video.
Whoa. You know what I'd like to do, and what we need is a night vision camera.
Yeah. We've been talking about that actually, getting some night vision lenses and a couple cameras and stuff.
Yes.
I got a buddy who lives in New York. His name is Doug Auld. He's an amazing artist, and he's in the back of The Reckoning. He wrote the play Hypnota, musical. But he's got a night vision scope hooked up to a camera and takes pictures like one every 15 minutes or something from the top of a high rise in, well, not New York City, but just across Jersey City or somewhere close, you know, on a tall building, right?
Yeah.
So there's no light pollution. And he gets some crazy stuff.
Dang.
I bet, man. I bet.
What do you think about the latest stuff coming out, the night vision triangle pyramid kind of thing? Have you seen that?
I saw that, and that is crazy stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, any correlation there? Is that kind of the same shape? I mean, we in your story, I mean, I'd love for you to maybe go over your story a little bit for people that haven't heard, but is that a similar, did that make you think of anything that you maybe have seen before? Because, I mean, you can't really tell the size. It could be a Walmart size is the one that you saw.
That's true.
Or it could be tiny. You just really don't have a reference for it.
Yeah. No, you know, that didn't ring any bells at all, because it's an actual geometric pyramid. And what I saw was just a triangle, but it was deep. And anybody listening that wants to see a picture of it, I did a drawing in 1977, contemporaneous with the event of the thing. And it's on at terrylovelace.com. And you can see the picture that I drew of it. But it wasn't a flying pyramid. I had never seen such a thing. I thought that was wild.
I went back and forth with Joe last week about it. I just couldn't see the pyramid shape. I couldn't see the three-dimensional shape. I don't know what it is. I think I have a red-green deficiency, and I can't see certain shades of green when it's, whatever. But all I saw was a triangle. So, I mean, that's why I was curious to know, like, did you see? So you're saying you obviously saw, like, a three-dimension to it.
Yeah, I could see. I'm kind of colorblind in a lot of shades, but I must be okay with green because I could see the three dimensions in it clearly.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Like I feel like I could see that dimension to the object. I mean, whatever it was, man, one of the things that I found interesting about this whole thing, though, is, there's a few videos floating around out there where there's like a pyramid, like over the Pentagon, or there's like a pyramid over like Moscow. And, it's always like, it's either Project Bluebeam or it's CGI. And now we have this actual video supposedly being confirmed. That's a pyramid. And so that kind of makes me think like, okay, well, is that stuff CGI now, or did some actual people really catch that on their cell phone? Because it's really
and
hard
that
to
was
see.
released by the Department of Defense through the U.S. Navy and blessed by the Department of Naval Intelligence. So,
Right.
I don't know what, if it's CGI, I'd be curious why they would want to deceive us like that.
Yeah.
It's a strange thing, man. I did see an article on how certain cameras that have a triangular iris on them, if they're closed at like a certain degree of some kind, depending on the light that's coming in.
Yeah, you actually see the inside of it, right?
Well, you can actually, it'll make triangles. Like you can take pictures of stars and the stars will be triangles. And like people do that for like artsy photos. So it kind of made me wonder, like, man, what is that? Because the blinking of it made me suspicious. But, there's just not enough evidence either way to really like kind of formulate like an educated opinion on it. It'd have to be a lot of digging that goes into it for me to make that type of.
I would have liked to seen it come into frame and leave the frame. I'd like to have seen, an aircraft in the background.
Yeah.
That would have been good. Because I'll tell you, it was just so strange to see something that's not aerodynamic at all.
Right.
Cruising along. It's crazy.
Yeah. Especially like the way it was flying bottom first. It seemed like, Yeah. It was like at the tip going. Opposite. It seems like it'd be a little more aerodynamic, but it wasn't. It was flying flat, like But then from all the other videos we've seen, like the which one was it? The gimbal, I guess that where it rotates and then flies like belly forward.
Yeah.
Like that's, not a very aerodynamic way to fly either, but from what we understand,
doesn't matter.
They're not dealing with the same stuff that we're dealing with, so
yeah.
The gimbal event, I had a guy, Matthew Roberts, He's been on a couple shows. He called me in 2018 and said, I was the Department of Naval Intelligence guy on the Roosevelt during the gimbal event.
Oh, wow.
Oh, dang.
And I said, cool. He read my book and thought, oh, this guy's military. I'm military. He got a cool experience. I got a cool experience. I'm going to talk to him. So he sent me an email and I said, here's my phone number. Call me. And he called me. We talked for like 3 hours. And I said, well, cool. Give me a scoop. What'd you see? What'd you see? What'd you see? He's like, I'd love to tell you, but I can't. I said, oh, come on. So he's like, no, man, I can't. I signed an NDA.
Even off the record?
If I violate that NDA, he said, they'll lock me up.
Yeah, man.
You're probably right. They probably would.
So Terry, what are your thoughts on this? I'm interested to hear your perspective, like after reading your book and you also being in the military and you going through like what you went through, not only with your main event, but also prior to that, there's a story of you and Toby that are going to
Toby.
Y'all are in the ambulance and I guess was it like a missile silo? Well, the whole base.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Right.
Kilo 5. It was it's a launch control facility. It's where they have. I've got a picture of it. I took a picture of it. I should try to find it, send it to you. It's but it's not much to see. It's just a chain link fence, and there's a little trapezoid brick building, and then it's all gravel. And then right in the middle, there's this big blue dome, about 15 feet in diameter. And that's the cap on top of the tube that holds the 60-foot tall Minuteman II thermonuclear missile with 5 warheads attached. Whoa. So yeah, that's an interesting thing to see. It's a scary thing to see.
Yeah. You had an instance where y'all showed up and told to stay in the ambulance, and y'all ended up getting out and actually seeing something.
Oh yeah, my friend Toby, he acted on impulse a lot, and he didn't like orders, and that's a tough thing when you're in the military, And we were ordered to stay in our ambulance, but it was like 4 degrees outside, and the windows kept fogging up, and we couldn't see anything going on. And Toby's like, man, I'm gonna go out and have a look around. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't do that. So he throws on a parka, he goes out, he looks around. And he comes back 10 minutes later, opens my door, grabs me by the shoulders, and he's pulling me out of the ambulance. He's like, man, you have got to see this. You have got to see this stuff.
We're not monetized. You can cuss whatever.
Okay. He said, you have got to see this shit. He's pulling me out. I grab my parka. I throw it on. I get out, and there's I don't remember if he's a captain or lieutenant. I don't remember now.
Yeah.
I think he was a captain. Anyway, the guy that told me to stay in the ambulance, stay off the radio, Toby's standing right next to him. And I went over and I stood next to him, and I'm looking around. What are you guys looking at? And over that blue dome that topped the missile, about maybe 50 feet in the air, there's a matte black, I called it a black diamond, because it was, how like the old F-117s, the first stealth planes, kind of had all that faceted multi-cut. Yeah. That thing was kind of like this. The thing, it kind of looked like the Rendlesham Forest thing.
Ooh,
oh, okay. Yeah.
Interesting.
So matte black, you couldn't see a rivet or a window or, no markings of any kind. And it is absolutely dead still. And, there are a dozen Air Force security police trucks there, and they all got spotlights. And everybody's got a spotlight on this thing. So it's lit up like crazy. And your mind is like, I look at that and I'm like, how can that be? How can it, you're looking for, are there wires or something holding this thing up? What's the deal? And it was just suspended there. Absolutely. It didn't move a millimeter. And my friend Toby, who was a math genius, seriously, counted all the facets and made a mental note and was able to recreate a drawing of the thing pretty accurately. I wish I had that. And while we're watching it, it goes from dead stop to 500 miles an hour, and boom, is gone.
Whoa, that's crazy.
And as soon as it's gone, we're looking at, the hole in the sky where it vanished. And the captain, who's kind of a hard ass kind of guy, turns to me with this big smile, like, "Did you see what I saw?" And we're like, "Yeah." And then everybody kind of snaps back into their respective roles, and he's like, "I'll get the gate open. You can go in and get your man." "Yes, sir." And,
I always find it funny, like, even if someone's a 5-star general, if they see something that defies laws of physics or anything they've ever seen, I feel like that's such a human reaction. The first thing to do is be excited about it. I love that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Even though they mask it a little later because they're like, "Oh, I have to be, whatever." But that first impression is like, "Oh, did you see that?"
Yeah, and you can't hide it. I think human nature is when you see something like that, no, you can't hide that.
Yeah. Dude, oh my God.
I'd have been really suspicious if he was like, nonchalant.
Yeah. Not fast enough.
Yeah, not fast enough. Exactly.
So
that's hilarious too, because the guy that y'all were going to go help was kept inside of a building. And isn't he the guy that they interviewed about the whole thing? The one guy who didn't see anything?
He's in this trapezoid building, and the captain had him stuck there. He had a broken ankle, I think, and they had his foot propped up on a trash can, and he's seated in this little trapezoid building. This trapezoid building, by the way, is kind of cool. You go in through a locked door, and there's all kinds of electronic security. You wouldn't believe how much there is. And you go in this door in this little trapezoid building, and there's a desk, a chair, a coat rack, and an elevator door.
Yeah.
And there's one button, down. And it takes you 60 feet down under the ground and opens the door, and you're at the base of the missile.
Whoa.
And that's how there were missile technicians there working on the missile, doing routine maintenance stuff. And the guy slipped off a ladder and fell and hurt his ankle. So he's in this building that has no windows. He can hear, all hell breaking loose outside, and he can't see anything. And so we get him in the ambulance, and he's like, "What I missed? What was out there? Tell me what you saw." He wasn't worried about his ankle. He wanted to know what we saw. I said, man, we saw flying saucers. It's just absolutely gigantic thing.
Like the biggest moment of FOMO ever. Like, you're at the bottom of this like silo with a broken ankle. You're like, "Oh man."
This is the only guy that didn't see a thing. We get him to the hospital, and as we finished up our shift, did our paperwork, and we're leaving. And as we're leaving, there's a NCO and a major from the Office of Special Investigations, security police, and they're just grilling this guy on, "What did you see? What happened out there? Tell us the whole story." We're like, that's funny. Never talked to us. I'm sure they never talked to any. I don't know.
Yeah. So do you know like when that thing showed up over that missile silo, do you know if anything happened? Like, did it activate or deactivate anything or turn?
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
But all kinds of things can happen that we don't know of.
Right.
It's like Robert Salas. Had his board go down, all of his missiles went offline, and that happened in Russia too.
Yeah.
That all the missiles went offline, and those are the instances we've heard of.
Right. Yeah.
That's a real secretive profession. I wonder how many people there are out there who had their missiles go offline, and we never knew about it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be a trip. You're hanging out with a bunch of nuclear missiles, and then they all turn on or all turn off. Either way has got to be a pretty scary experience, because you're like, okay, what next? That's like standing next to like a butane tank with like a fire going on right next to it. You're just, okay, so should we leave now?
That happened to us at the fish fry, dude.
I mean, you start just pressing buttons at random and hope you get the right thing.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, dude, I don't know if I've asked you this before, but man, now that like, sorry to be changing the subject a little bit, but you've obviously been in the military. You've been around people that were very serious about stuff, and we're talking about nuclear silos, like our country's best defense against allies, or who knows. Like, what do you think about the military now being totally transparent? Because I feel like before there was like a sense of embarrassment, like we don't want everybody to know everything, and now it's like being slowly leaked that there's stuff everywhere. What are your thoughts? Like, do you think there's an agenda in some way? I mean, you of all people, I think you've been in that scenario and now seeing this out. Like, what do you think? What do you think's happening?
Well, I'll tell you what. This started December 17th, 2017, when this Commander Fravor, who flew the F-18 back in 2014 or whenever it was, off the Roosevelt, and checked out the Tic Tacs. And I talked to Kevin Day, who was the radar operator. That's an interesting story. He'd make a great guest.
Definitely.
He's on Facebook. Yeah, to answer your question, something has changed. To have, number one, a naval commander doesn't go on and call a press conference. That doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. You know, if he goes on, he knows what he's going to say. It's been rehearsed. Every single word has been noted and read and vetted, and 10 different people have read it. And then the permission for that disclosure, I think, has to come from the very top. I think that had to come from the president. I don't think that came from, certainly didn't come through naval intelligence so, it makes you wonder, why the disclosure?
Yeah.
I know Leslie Kane, who wrote the article, and Leslie and I were asked to speak at Rice University in Houston, and you guys know where Rice is.
Oh yeah.
Back in November 2019, we went down and we spoke to the entire humanities department of Rice, including the College of Theology, and she spoke about UFOs, and I spoke about alien abduction. And it was interesting to see these academics. There was no public and no press. It was all faculty and PhD candidates.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, well, and I told Leslie, I said, well, you're going to talk about a tough audience, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You like trying to make a joke.
Yeah. No, these people were absolutely golden. They were just wonderful people and treated us just so kindly.
That's awesome.
We'd have been back in 2020 if COVID hadn't been around.
Yeah,
but Leslie wrote that story, and she got, I won't say where she got that information, but she got that information from a high level, and wrote her story, and it seemed like that opened a door. But I'll say this: everything they disclosed is absolutely planned and premeditated, and it's not. It's not leaked. It's all done on purpose. So I just wonder what's going on. I think we're being prepared for something. I really do.
Yeah, man. I have to ask. I'm always kind of this guy. I hate to be the smelly sock in the pile of clean clothes, but do you trust? Do you trust it? Like I want to so bad. Like I want to be like, yes. They're giving us this information, and it's good information, and I hope that they're trying to steer us in the right direction. But you have personal experience of like, Mr. Lovelace, you better shut up and never speak of this ever again. So you've dealt with that side of this issue. No, I don't trust them, and I don't believe. I don't buy what they disseminate just because they're handing it out. Just because they're handing it out doesn't mean I buy it. I feel the same.
I don't know. I'm torn. I mean, I really am. I don't know. Is this real stuff? Is this stuff they're generating? And then a few years back, who was it? Maybe it was Greer. It was Dr. Greer. I don't know. Somebody was talking about a false flag thing where they were going to, the United States was going to simulate a alien invasion towards some agenda. I don't know. Yeah, that's pretty far out there, but
it was like Roosevelt had these plans, right?
No, that
am
was
I saying the wrong one.
Yeah, that was dang it.
Eisenhower.
The Russian
Mr. Gorbachev, that guy. Check out this
the
wall.
Guy, the guy who said that. The guy who made
Ronald
the
Reagan.
Ronald Reagan. That's the guy. It's gotta be.
Yes.
Well, Ronald Reagan had made the speech basically talking about, like how would the world react if there were to be some outside alien threat? Would we all come together and, work as a team? I wish I could remember the Russian dude's name. He like basically
Gorbachev
invented the rocket. And he had talked about the plan of like creating a one world government. The final step of that would be a false alien invasion. And you know, he called it.
Dude, I'm having such a brain fart too. I'm thinking like Oppenheimer. No,
I am so mad. I can't think of
the guy who
name.
started NASA. People in the chat help us out.
Not Werner von Braun.
Yes, that is who it is.
So he's the one that came up with that.
Yeah, he had talked about how like basically the United States would go through these steps where basically we would have the threat of communism come upon us, and that would be our first enemy. And then we would have these terrorism. We would have to fight terrorism and these third world nut jobs. And we've kind of went through that whole thing. And the last and final step would be a false alien invasion that would come about that would create this one world government, basically. And I have mixed feelings on the whole one world government thing. But, you know, this seems like, okay, like we're kind of like, people don't talk about terrorism as much as they used to. It's not like top of mind like it was right after 9/11. So now we're kind of moving into this new era. Like, who do we have now to fight? Like, people are getting tired of like these earthly wars. Like, where do we go now? Well, now maybe they're prepping us for this false alien invasion thing. And I can't say, you know, because I have no personal experience on whether this is positive or negative. We've all heard the flip sides, like of really positive experiences and really negative experiences. So ultimately, who really knows, you know? But go for it.
And, you know, I just want to say, you know, right now is a peculiar time in history because there are three things going on. And, you know, I think of the Axis powers in World War II, you know, Germany, Italy, and Japan. Mm-hmm. Well, now we got Russia, China, and Iran.
Right.
And, you know, we got China, who is laying claim to the South China Sea, which is a major trade route. And they, you know, they built air bases out of man-made islands all throughout the China Sea.
Yeah.
And they're flying warplanes over Taiwan almost every other day.
Oh,
and
that's scary.
You know, you got Russia right now. As of today, they have 150,000 troops on the Ukraine border today. And Putin went on air today and said, "Don't mess with us. You know, don't mess with us. Don't cross our." He called it a red line. Don't cross that red line.
I bet you said it like super
you'll
chill
regret
too. I bet he said it so calmly, like just.
Oh yeah, of course, you know.
You know, Terry, have you heard of this? I don't know what. I'm sure there's a name for it, but there's a reason why some people think that we go to the United States goes to war so often is because we in wartime don't have to pay taxes to whoever we owe, like China, who we owe like trillions of dollars. So now they're kind of like making. I don't know. It's a theory, okay, allegedly. But
we have to pay more taxes to our own government.
Our own government, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I buy that.
Okay.
You know, because there's so much trade. I mean, you know, and there are already tariffs in place, and
but like there is a national debt that we have, and
that's scary.
You know, that's it makes me wonder. Like it's like. Oh, I would believe that. I'm not saying it's true, but I could believe that there's some kind of treaty to where if the United States is at war, we don't have to pay our debts while we do it.
Well, yeah, like if you're going to go to war with China, who you owe a whole bunch of debt to, you're not going to pay them debt while you're fighting them in a war.
You're like, yeah, fighting them. Also, here's a dollar, and here's a dollar, and then back to
yeah. Sorry, I blew that up. Here's a dollar.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, Germany in World War I amassed an unbelievable debt. And they just paid it off in the 1990s.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
And the last installment, yeah.
But you could just pay it off.
And a student loan wouldn't go away.
Maybe the United States should look at doing something like that. Hey, let's just let's pay some of that off. It's impossible, dude. Like at this point, I don't even think it's you can even pay it off, man. Like what did we do? Like this year, like in like the COVID relief bills, like we spent like 2.5 years worth of like actual yearly budgets, like just this year alone. So we've spent like 3.5 years of yearly budgets just this year, and it's like, dude, I mean,
something like 50% of all the dollars ever printed or minted in this country have been minted or printed in the past 13 months.
Oh my
yeah, it's an insane amount of money,
dude.
Yeah,
that's too much money. We don't actually.
It's crazy.
You know what's fun to think about is that money doesn't exist. So that's
right. Money doesn't exist. That's a really a big point. It's an area of interest of mine, and that in 1973, Nixon took us off the gold standard because the dollar used to be backed by gold. Mm-hmm. And now it's what's called a fiat currency, F-I-A-T, not the car.
Does this make me look
currency.
fiat?
I don't know what it stands for, but every single currency in the world is now backed by the good faith of the government, not by anything tangible.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Bitcoin is the way of the future.
Love that. What about Dogecoin? What do you think about Dogecoin?
Oh, I don't know. I looked at that. You know, I bought a couple of Bitcoin back when they were dirt cheap.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yes.
Dude, congratulations.
I believe in that. And I believe in that.
Awesome.
That's going to be the future medium of exchange. Because the fiat dollar is not backed by anything, and we're printing trillions of dollars.
Yeah. On good faith of the government.
Yeah.
The people at Bank of America want to pay me 0.03% on my savings account. I'm like, what am I going to give you guys my money for?
Yeah, man.
All I know is that I bought some Dogecoin, and I'm never going to give them away. I want it to be so long that they're going to actually print them, and I want a physical coin one day. That's my goal. So
well, that kind of defeats the purpose, though. It's supposed to be digital, man.
I know. Like by that time, it'll be worthless because it's physical, right?
I don't know.
I want to give you a chicken for some milk.
Yeah, I love that. Yes.
The barter system?
But chickens and milk are hard to keep around in a wallet. And also if you travel to a place that has plentiful chickens and milk, you're like, well, I guess I got to go back home to get my goat because they don't take chickens or milk here. So, babe, honey, we got to go back. Load up the wagon.
I tell you what. Here's my kid.
Yeah.
Man, so Terry, what do you think about this, man? Like, kind of not steering away, but what do you think if we were to ever reach this galactic scale of trade among the stars?
Yeah.
Do you think we would have to develop into a one world government system?
No question.
Yeah,
I think we would. People will say it's crazy, but I think that it's true. If we can avoid blowing ourselves up, and if we can stay stable, maybe one day we could have. Just think about that. If we had one world without borders, there'd be nobody would be acting regionally. There wouldn't be these petty wars, and not so petty wars.
Right.
One world acting in unison.
Why is everybody so against that though? Now it's like, I don't know.
Well, it depends because we're assuming like, one world government. Well, is it going to be the United States government, or is it going to be Russia's government? Is it going to be China's government? Whose government is it going to be? Is it going to be a completely new government?
Yeah, maybe.
How long is it going to take us to transition into this new government? Is that is it something we've even thought about yet? I'm sure somebody's done a lot of. I'm sure there's a think tank for this. It's probably already set up, and they're just slowly phasing it in. Within the next 200 years, it'll finally start, taking hold. I mean, yeah.
I mentioned that at a MUFON meeting one time up in Grapevine, Texas.
Hey, yeah.
And this woman says, "You're a socialist." I'm like, well, yeah, kind of, And she's like, well, you were up in Vermont. And I said, yeah, I was. I knew Bernie Sanders. Yeah.
I mean, you're a big deal for people that don't know. I mean, like, I mean, you've been in government to a large capacity. You've seen how the gears work, so your perspective is a little different.
I've never been an elected. I've always been an appointed. And there's a distinction there. I've always been a civil servant,
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw how the inside of the government works.
So
kind of crazy.
Do you think that that the ultimate goal is or could be, new management? I mean, the people or the entities that you met, is that somebody that you could even trust, or do they have a totally different species or race that is already putting stuff in place? That's where my head goes. It's like, man, maybe there's like a whole different game being played.
Like it's a whole model that's already existing.
Yes.
And like we just don't know about it as the common person.
Yes.
But whoever is like in charge of the people that are in charge, like they know about it.
Right.
Everybody's got to have a boss. There's got to be some kind of oversight. But then you hear all these crazy stories about like the guy who was the tax collector down in Florida, who's being looked at with Matt Gaetz right now under scrutiny. Well, yeah, that guy, the Greenberg, I think is his name, was arrested by the FBI and charged with a bunch of crimes. And,
dang.
He was an elected official.
Yeah.
People went to the polls and voted for him.
Yeah.
And I read that he bought like $60,000 worth of computers, billed it to the county, and was trying to get them online to mine Bitcoin from his office. How crazy is that? On the taxpayer's dime.
Come on, man.
Oh, man. Terry, have you ever read the book Childhood's End?
No,
Arthur
sounds
C.
interesting.
Clarke? He wrote a book called Childhood's End, and this whole thing like has this vibe to it. I haven't finished the book, but so far I've gotten to where basically these massive craft come down and they sit over major cities of the entire world. They don't do anything. They just come down and they stay there for like 100 years, and nobody really understands what's going on. There's one person who's allowed to communicate with somebody on the inside, and he kind of relays information. And basically what they're trying to do is get the next generation of kids to become very familiar and just accepting of the fact that there's this craft that's there, and it's just normal everyday thing. And so the idea of it is that these beings want humanity to transition into their way of living, and slowly over, it's been 100 years already, but slowly, people will start to come to their side and start living that type of life, I guess, their government, their system, and some people do, some people don't. So you have the rebels, and then you have the people who are conforming to the new system that has arrived here on Earth. And it's really really interesting, like when we talk about this and like this one world government and what would it be. And this new one world government is probably not even an earthly government. I'm in my head, that's my own like just assumption, is like I don't feel like it would even be maybe an earthly government at all. It might be something completely different.
You know what I envision, and this sounds crazy, I know, but my vision is that in the future the entire world will be run by AI, and there'll be no committees or councils or AI will run everything. I mean, it writes its own program.
Yeah, that could. So do you think that's a positive thing or a negative thing?
I think it's a positive thing. I think, I think I'd rather trust a computer that could think for itself than I would, a human being.
Yeah. What?
There's no built-in bias. There's no,
Right.
There's no greed. There's no, all the
Hopefully.
negative things that go along with government wouldn't be there.
Yeah. Well, I think I think I'm definitely on the same track as you when I think about this thought. When you look at like government as a body, really it's just a bunch of people. It's just people. there's going to be ego. There's going to be ulterior motives. And then there's going to be, bad stuff, good stuff all the way around. So the AI thing is, it's scary because everybody hates change. So
that's true. Everybody's afraid of it.
Yeah. So what you're saying is like, if there wasn't coded in this aspect of ego or superiority or whatever, that would be awesome. But what if somebody like snuck in a little code like, hey, in 120 years, you're going to start getting greedy, little robot. And then,
put their money in this account. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Project Venus? It's by a guy, Jacques Fresco, I think is his name. He studied a lot of like Buckminster Fuller type stuff, and he basically talked about a society that transitions from a consumer-based society into a production-based society, to where basically nothing really costs money anymore, because there is a central, they would build cities that would have a central hub that would basically AI, and it would understand the resources that are available within this area of the city. And so they would have these little robots that would build, houses that would go up, and they would build, it's built in a circle. So everything is super efficient.
It sounds like Atlantis, man.
It sounds like Atlantis.
Hey, that crossed my mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plato's description of Atlantis. Yeah.
And it's basically like rings. So the center ring is basically where, your schools, your hospitals, your doctors and lawyers and stuff like that are all, centrally located, your libraries and stuff. And then the next ring out is like agriculture and farming, and there's, cattle and stuff like that. And then the next ring out from that is, you would have hotels and apartment complexes and stuff. And then on the outside ring, you would have like these rural areas where there would be like single family homes and stuff on the outside. But basically the AI would understand that like if there's too many people and the resources won't last, that it would create a whole nother section for people to move into. And it would be, a few miles down.
Anticipate the needs.
Yeah, it would anticipate the needs of the humans, and nothing would really cost anything. It's just like this area that you live and you eat and you drink water. And I think his idea was like, when you free the human mind up from the strenuous activity of always figuring out how you're gonna eat, sleep, and
pay the
rent. Yeah. You start to open the mind up to a lot of creativity and thought, and you talk about the advancement in society and science and things like that, and art and culture, and how we would basically create like a whole new culture like for the world, just by being able to free up that space in people's heads. That stress, you take away that stress, you take away the anxiety, you take away the need for like, I have to have this is mine, or I have to go to war because I need those resources. You basically strip that away because you don't need it anymore. Yeah. It's called Project Venus. It's pretty interesting. Awesome. It's kind of an older idea. The guy's a little older. I'm not even sure if he's alive anymore, honestly. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. You should check it out. It's called Project
I will.
Venus.
I will. I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking about how many people there are stressed about their student loans, or about being underemployed or unemployed. And what concerns me, as long as we're on the topic of social issues, is the disparity between people that have and people that ain't got nothing. And you're talking about what, like 1% of this country holds 90% of the wealth.
Yeah.
That's just insane.
It's a lot of chickens and milk.
Yeah. I think that sets the stage. Well, you know what? We're pretty close to civil unrest now. I mean, we're pretty divided. I mean, everybody falls on one side or another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, like Rodney King said in 1993, can't we all just get along?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You would definitely like that. I would definitely prefer a system that leaves me alone as much as possible.
Yeah. Well, while you're on that
You know?
that topic, Terry, like it does feel like we're at a tipping point. Like the bubbles are rising, and I feel like there's a divide, not only just among the country, but where people are headed mentally and spiritually. Some people think that it's the end of the world, and some people think it's a new beginning. Where do you fall in that category?
Well, you know, I've got good friends that are elected officials that I've worked for, and so I'd rather not. I stay away from. I'm apolitical when it comes to that point. I'll share it with you over a beer sometime, but
That sounds great.
Oh yeah. What, you don't have a beer? Where's your beer, dude?
Yeah, where is my beer? That's a good question. You know, I think we're a divided country right now, and that's troubling. And I wish we could somehow get over that. But you know, both sides are convinced that they're right. And it used to be that reasonable minds could disagree over something.
Right.
But you know, I've lost two good friends because they disagree with my point of view. And I'm like, look, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. Believe what you want to believe. It's cool. I'm good with that.
Mm-hmm.
But they want me to change my opinion and believe what they believe.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, they're offended, and it you know, it ended friendships. And I thought that I could not imagine in a million years that ever happening.
Right.
It's sad, man. Yeah, it's such a bummer that every single thing that happens has to be politicized. Like one way or the other. It's like, dude, can we not just look at this and decide whether or not that's good or bad? Does that have to be politicized? Do we have to split it in like this red and blue category? What's the point? Obviously, it hasn't worked in the past, really. It's definitely not working now. Do we think it's going to work in the future? I mean, we're just going to keep doing it over and over and over again? I mean, like, part of me feels like it's by design. And then part of me also feels like it's just our own stupidity. You know, I place a lot of the blame on ourselves as humans, as the population. I don't blame everything on the government, but I think it's really 50-50, you know? I think a lot of it is just not educating yourself and just saying whatever you think is right and expecting people to go with your ideology. And then the other half of it is like, well, we also have like media platforms, and we have these government officials that are so childish and they politicize everything. So it kind of leaves us, back in the day, I mean, the news ran 3 times a day. The morning, hey, some stuff happened, and we'll update you again in the afternoon, hey, remember that stuff that happened? Well, we got a little story on it. And then the evening, here's an overcap of everything that happened today. Now the news runs 24/7. Like, what are they reporting on? Like, what is there? I mean,
well, you know what? Yeah, no, boy, it's a great point. And you know what? Why would I care about a news anchor's opinion?
Yes,
I don't.
Yes.
And why would I care about 4 or 5 experts on a panel that they have handpicked that are going to come in and agree with their position?
Right.
So you know what? I don't watch
Yeah.
CNN, Fox, MSNBC, none of that stuff. I don't watch not a minute of it. OAN, whatever the other networks are. I don't watch any of that. I get my news from Bloomberg, Associated Press, and you know who else does great reporting is Al Jazeera.
Yeah. It's pretty wild that, you look at this and there's 24-hour news stations and there's 5-minute segments that still run morning, afternoon, evening that are news segments, and the rest of this 24-hour news channel is all opinion pieces. That's all it is. It's just opinion pieces and entertainment. Even on the radio, when you listen to like news talk radio, they'll have like the show that goes on. That's an opinionated show. That's all that is. And then when they go to commercial break and they're like, today at 9:55, van drove into a crowded, area, blah, blah, blah. We'll have more updated news later. And that was the news. That 30-second little portion, that was the news. The rest of that is all opinions. All of it. Yeah. It's all opinions.
Well, and I think that there's a group of maybe 50-year-olds and above sitting at home in front of the television, mom and pop kind of thing, watching this, thinking that this is news and not even considering this is op-ed. This isn't news.
Yeah.
And I think it has an influence. I mean, on both sides. I think that it has an influence that's just wrong. It's just not news.
It absolutely does. They need to go back to watching Wheel of Fortune. Because I know that's what I watch. I love Wheel of Fortune. Wheel of Fortune. Get it, Vanna White.
She still looks good.
Still looks good.
Dang. Come on.
Get it, Vanna.
I agree.
Yes, man. Yes.
So I'm thinking maybe, so we've gone down this political path. I mean, there's some people in the chat that really want to hear a little bit more about your story, Terry. So, I mean, talking about your new book, Joe was telling me a little bit about some of the details that you were able to go into. And, man, so your first book is kind of, there's a ton of detail, and it seems like there's a new story every time you get to this pinnacle, and it's like, okay, well, here's another really amazing thing that happened. Sometimes scary, most of the time scary, honestly. But with this new book, what was the idea behind the new book? And do you maybe explain some of the details that you were able to bring out? And what was it hard to choose which ones to choose to bring out some of those extra details?
That's a great question. I love it. And I'll answer that. And that is that when I wrote Devil's Den and published it, I honest to God, I wrote it as a catharsis for myself, for my mental health. And I thought, I'll sell 100 books and have a box of 50 in my garage or something, right? And I've sold 15,000. So,
yes. Nice.
But I left a lot of things unanswered in the first book that I didn't think would be that big a deal. And I kept getting letters from people. Like in the first book, there's the story of Rodney Letterman. I'll tell it real quick. Rodney Letterman's a 32-year-old young man from Bartlesville, Oklahoma, who in August of 2017 drove to Devil's Den with his friend. And they were going to walk the Butterfield Trail and hang out and just see the park, right? Mm-hmm. So they drove down, and they're on the Butterfield Trail, which is actually, it was the old Butterfield stagecoach line, which was the first coast-to-coast stagecoach. And it runs right through Devil's Den, and it's a paved walkway. It's a very easy walk for anybody. And I don't know, did you get on the Butterfield Trail when you went down there?
That sounds familiar. So what we did was we drove down the path into where it's like this station, like a house kind of thing, where you go and you ask whoever, like, for a map or whatever. I know there's a term for it, a kiosk kind of thing, but there was like people working there, and we got there at dusk, so there wasn't anybody working there. So all we had to do was ask people, like, hey, is this the right way to go? This is the wrong way to go. So I don't know if there's more than one, but do you know if there is one or more than one? Because I don't know where that would be, Butterfield Trail, because there was some paved roads going through it.
This is a paved walkway.
Yeah.
This is for pedestrian traffic, and it cuts through the park. And Rodney Letterman and his friend are walking on this trail, and they're about a mile or two into their walk. And I got this information from a police officer, a deputy sheriff under condition of anonymity. So I think it's the real deal. And he told me that Rodney was having an asthma attack, and he left his inhaler in a truck, right? He's 32 years old, but he's got asthma and it's acting up. And he asked his friend, he says, hey man, I screwed up. I left my inhaler back in the truck. Could you run back and get it for me? And friend says, sure, no sweat. So his buddy runs back to the truck, grabs the inhaler, and is back within about 35 minutes or so. Gets back. There's no Rodney Letterman. Uh-oh. All there is his cell phone laying on the ground.
No, dude.
Now, I don't know about you, man, but my cell phone's either in my hand or in my pocket.
Yep.
You know? And
this is a grown man.
Yeah, grown man, 32 years old, him and his buddy. And his friend, same age roughly, calls the ranger station and says, my buddy is just gone. He says he was wheezing. He's in no condition to be out walking around in this terrain, because the terrain's rocky and it's a lot of overgrowth, and it's he was ill-equipped to be out there. So they responded right away. I mean, a guy on a quad drove up right away and got the story and got on a walkie-talkie and like, got there's a neighboring park on the other side of the road. There's a road that divides the two parks. On the west side is Devil's Den State Park, which is an Arkansas state park, and on the right is the Ozark National Forest. Well, they called the Ozark National Forest and got the federal guys, federal park rangers involved. And within like 24 hours, they had 2,500 people searching for Rodney Letterman. They had aircraft, they had helicopters with forward-looking infrared radar looking for a heat signature from the Arkansas Air National Guard, flying all over the place. And the official search lasted a week and found nothing.
Oh,
and
week, bro.
The family paid for trackers and people to come in. And that search went through October. And I published the book in March of 2018. And I said, as of the writing of this book, nothing's been found of Rodney Letterman. If something changes, I'll let you know. Something changed.
There's an update.
Okay.
There's definitely an update.
Let's go, dude.
March 2019, there's a young couple walking up the Butterfield Trail. And the woman looks to her left and says to her friend, "Is that an albino turtle?" And her friend's like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he looks over and they walk over and here's this log, maybe 8 foot long, and it's laying parallel with the trail. It's like part of the trail, it's the part that keeps you from wandering off, right? So they got these logs like things and split rail fences and the like. But here's this 8 foot log, and right dead center of this log is this football shaped white object.
Okay.
And a guy walks over and picks it up and looks at it and realizes it's a human bone.
Oh,
and it's the skull cap of Rodney Letterman, verified by the Bartlesville, Oklahoma Medical Examiner.
What, bro?
You know what? When I read this story, the first thing crossed my mind, I think back to when I was a prosecutor, and that seems to me like a staged crime scene. That seems to me like that was staged. Somebody or something put that there,
sitting on a log,
because 300 people walk past it every day
right
on the Butterfield Trail. And who and why? And that's all they've ever found of the guy. Not a stitch of clothing or a boot or nothing.
Yeah, it's insane. Dude.
So did they? Okay, so the skull. Maybe you have more information about the skull. Did it look like it was cut, or were there chew marks on it? Did it look like a saw? Was that able to?
I asked that question. The deputy sheriff that I talked to told me that it was broken, rough edges, so it wasn't cut, but it was broken in such a way that it was symmetrical, kind of he described it as being football shaped, and they treated it as a crime scene. Human remains, that's what they do, and
right.
They tagged it and bagged it and shipped it off to the medical examiner in Oklahoma, and
right, dude. Okay, so when I was in Arkansas, I got to ask you this. When I was in Arkansas, my wife's little sister goes to school there. She was saying that there's a couple of rumors in town that there are mountain people that live in the mountains. And I know everybody, first thing I think is Bigfoot. Sure. Yes, obviously. But this was a new thing I haven't really thought about in a really long time since that movie, The Hills Have Eyes, which is totally, whatever. But the cannibals that live in the mountains that are just, inbred and they're just really spooky. But there's like a rumor in Arkansas. Have you heard anything about that?
I have heard that rumor.
Yeah, they're called feral people.
Did you know that there are caves, all kinds of caves in that park that are now off limits, that have been off limits for a few years now, but that's new. And the reason that they give is that the bats in there carry some kind of disease, and they're worried that there's a chance somebody will go in there and catch some disease from these bats.
Yeah.
But who knows? Like I say, I've heard that rumor too, that I've heard Bigfoot. I've heard, like this tribal thing going on with humans. Who knows? Like I say, the place has a weird vibe.
It does.
Who knows?
It does, man. So one of the trails, I told you we went on a trail that, the person that was taking us on had never been down before. And we came across this. I mean, there were other people walking. We weren't by ourselves. We definitely saw people coming down. They seemed fine. And we cut like one of the first things we come across on like the first like incline. So we get kind of like to the base of the actual hike. And there's this cave that has a gate, a metal gate put in front of the entrance of this cave. And I have a photo of it. It's so creepy. Spooky, man.
Yeah, those are the ones that are off limits.
Okay.
That's what they did. They put wrought iron gates in the front and
Yep.
to
And
keep people out.
that was just below. I guess that's one of the mouths of where we eventually ended up, where you could see down. I mean, if you stepped right and you weren't paying attention, you would fall through into this. Like, it was treacherous.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. You had
Well, in 2017, when I wrote the book, I subscribed to the Arkansas Gazette and to a couple of the local papers, and I scanned them every day, looking for articles that deal with Devil's Den. Because like I say, Bureau of Parks and Recreation in Little Rock won't tell you anything.
Yeah,
like
right.
David Paulides ran into the same obstacle.
Right.
Yeah.
Missing 411. Yeah. From what I remember, the documentaries is like, in order to get that information, it costs like millions of dollars to get that.
$3 million.
$3 million.
Jeez.
You had made a reference to David Paulides in your book, basically talking about the map and how it was interesting that parks and places with the name Devil or Diablo have a higher amount of missing people in them.
Yeah, he's a real data guy, you know. I kind of am to a point, but not, that's one thing I wanted to talk about these stories was some of the commonalities that I found.
Yeah.
But I had at the time 1,400 stories to pick through, and about 400 of them that are just really, really good. And and I was going to say, back in 2017, Rodney Letterman wasn't the only casualty in Devil's Den State Park. Earlier in the year, in the spring, I forget which month, there was a young 28-year-old woman named Monica Murphy who was cruising around the park by herself, and they found her at the base of a 100-foot cliff. And after a week, she was missing a week, and they ruled it a suicide. So, maybe, who knows?
Was she like, I mean, this is kind of morbid, but I guess eaten by animals and stuff. I mean, did it look like any foul play had happened that you know of, or?
No, they said the cause of death was traumatic trauma from falling, 100 feet, 10 stories.
Yeah.
And there was no mention about predation or, drug use or anything like that. The mother said that she had been depressed, so maybe it was a suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who knows, it could have been, but it seems like an odd way. I don't know many. I'd be curious statistically how many women go into a state park and jump off a 100-foot cliff as a means of suicide. I mean, I think they're more, cut your wrist or take some pills.
Right.
Because I mean, I'm not. I've never studied that. I'm not an MD or anything, but I bet people that do study that stuff know, and I bet you that's just an odd way for a woman to commit suicide. Really, for anybody to commit suicide.
Right.
Right.
So that's quite the. You have to think about that, like you're hiking up, and then you get there, and then you see this cliff. That's a lot of that's a lot of thought process going on that by the time you got there, you would probably change your mind.
Yeah, like it's beautiful out there. I mean, you would hopefully have some sense of like, man, maybe there is something.
As opposed to just being like,
yeah,
I'm upset. I'm very angry. I'm going to end it. Here's a bunch of pills. I'm just going to fall asleep, right? That seems like it's easier, probably quicker. It might suck for a little bit, maybe, depending on what you took. But like, it seems like that would be like an easier way to go out and not have to think about it as much. But a hike,
That's a very good point, because I think when I don't know much about suicide, but I mean, I would think that it would be much easier to act on impulse and take a bunch of pills than it would be to drive to the park and park your car and get out and take a walk and go to this cliff. And like you said, you made a good point. And that is, when you're standing there looking at the scenery and the beauty of the earth, I mean, it'd be kind of tough to jump. Yeah, besides, that doesn't sound like a good way to go, if you ask me. The sudden deceleration just does not sound like that.
And it's not 100% certainty, right? Like, like when, but like,
I think it's 100% certain. Yeah, at that height, I think it's 100% certain.
What was the height again?
100 feet.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. That makes sense.
You know how Bill Burr has that story? He talks about the man who had terminal cancer, and he wanted to go on a helicopter ride, and so he goes with this guy in this helicopter ride, and the guy's showing him around the city. I'm not sure where it was, but wherever it was, there was a large body of water, and they're up in this helicopter, and the guy's pointing out certain areas of the city and this and that. And before he knows it, the guy who has terminal cancer starts unbuttoning his safety belt, and then he opens the door. And as they're up in the helicopter, he's like, I'm going out. That's it. I'm going to end it right now. And jumps out of the helicopter, slams into the water, and ends up surviving.
Oh,
like,
my God.
Whoa.
It broke every bone in his body, and he was just bruised and bleeding internally. Then he still had terminal cancer.
No!
And like it's kind of comical, but it's also like so like bad. But like it's like, dude, like
that's some bad luck, man.
That's just some bad luck.
That's
for
crazy.
Sure.
That's crazy.
But he had it in a comedy skit. But I believe it's an actual story. It's a true story. But yeah, I couldn't. Yeah. I don't know, man. You're right. You're right, Terry. Acting on impulse seems a lot easier than going through this whole ordeal to do that. And, I've even heard stuff like, even going back to like the ancient times of, like oracles and things like that, where certain caves in certain parts of the earth, will have this certain gas that comes out, from the crust of the earth, and it kind of changes the way you think. It induces you into like a hallucinogenic state. And
Oracle of Delphi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like,
but if that were to happen to an average regular person who's like maybe taking a hike and they come across this cave that maybe has some of this gas in it, and then they start to hallucinate and like don't understand what's happening to them, that seems like something that you could just take off running and not be paying attention and fall off a cliff.
ooh,
Dude.
Yeah.
That seems pretty plausible.
Wow.
It could be plausible for some of these, missing disappearances. I mean, we're just speculating here, obviously, but
maybe that's what the bat guano does. That's why it's gated off some of those tunnels. Maybe I don't know. It could, maybe lessen
psychological.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. I feel like the science is got to be there, but my for some reason my brain goes to either Bigfoot or UFOs or aliens. To me,
Well, because it's easier than science.
I don't know. It makes more sense to me because we have so many people that have seen aliens and alien craft and Bigfoot in those rural areas, those beautiful places.
Right.
I don't know.
Ben, you brought up the fact about, I think it was you that brought up the fact about David Paulides and the reference to Diablo and Devil.
Oh, yeah.
And his fourth volume in the Missing 411 series is called The Devil is in the Details. And that's where he shows the statistical data about all that's happened in these places named Devil. Devil's Glade, Devil's Lake, Devil's Glen, Devil's Tower.
Yes.
There's 100 different places, and bad stuff is known to happen there.
So
that's just weird.
Yeah. What do you think? Like, what is it?
So, I mean, from your experience, Terry, in a place called Devil's Den, if something like that, what do you think your reaction would have been had you have been by yourself and not had Toby with you?
I have two schools of thought on that. And number one, I think that by the time we saw the stars in the sky, the 3 stars that were actually the ship, we were under the influence of this thing. It really speaks to the influence of them because, but earlier when we were talking, there was a lull in our conversation and I noticed that the forest went dead quiet. That spooked me. I was unnerved. And had I been by myself, I'd have been out of there and gone before any influence could have happened. I'd have been long gone.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to say like, yeah, first time in the woods, you're spooked. Yeah, no, not me. And
Right.
It's like an ego thing almost. Like you have your buddy, you don't want to look like a scaredy cat in front of your buddy.
no, so I stayed, but I just can't. I scratch my head and I just wonder why they still cut the grass and keep the foliage off this top of this plateau with no paved road. They go up there by tractor.
I know.
For 50 years, they've been cutting the grass on top of this stupid plateau in the middle of nowhere.
Dude, that is spooky in itself. I mean, for the people that don't know that are listening, I mean, yeah, Terry, you and your buddy Toby go to camp, and you guys find this meadow, and you have your photography camera, and that's where this incident happens with the large deltoid triangle delta shape that you say is as big as a Walmart.
Yes.
And this meadow is always kind of something about it. Being in the middle of nowhere is just the weirdest thing.
It gives me a very Close Encounters of the Third Kind vibe.
Yeah, but it feels familiar.
Right? But, like their maintenance, the shape of the cutout that's up there, instead of Devil's Tower, you have Devil's Den. It's got this, Close Encounters of the Third Kind vibe to it where they know and they probably go there. And you guys just so happen to be there on a day when they weren't there. And I don't know, man. Like, from your story and stuff, it seems like they know a lot more about that place than they let on.
And Steven Spielberg was dialed in. They released that movie the same year in November of 1977. So 5 months after we had our encounter, they released that movie. And I didn't see it for 30 years.
Wow.
I have trouble watching alien stuff. I mean, I didn't see Independence Day until 2018,
Wow.
Yeah, man.
But when I finally watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and they showed the door go down and this like fog and these little guys come walking out, I just about flipped out. I tell you.
Yeah. How close? I mean, was it just a visceral thing? Or was it accurate in any way to something that you had? I mean, there's so many details, but to me, the long arms and the long fingers were something that it's just. I know a lot of people talk about it, but especially in your story, you're so descriptive of certain elements of it. Did that resonate with you? Is that why?
Oh
you
my
freaked
God,
out?
yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes. It's just like 1987, I think it was. I saw Whitley Strieber's book, Communion, and that cover has a face of an alien on it.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I got dizzy. I was in a shopping mall. I had dizzy. I had to leave, and I met Whitley in South Dakota 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And, we talked now and then. And one of the things I asked him was, why did you pick that image for the cover of the book? And you know what he said? Because that's what they look like.
Oh, dude.
Man.
Because that's what they look like, man.
Yeah.
I've got a follow-up question, Terry. Back when Close Encounters of the Third Kind, not only like the way that the aliens look, but the way that they move, it's almost puppet-like, where if you weren't really in the know and have talked to a lot of people that have seen entities like this, you would think, that's fake. But from a lot of people that we've talked to, you don't really know how they move. It could seem fake or puppet-like, but it's a different creature. So the way that they move is gonna be different than how we move.
I think so. And I mentioned that in my book that they had they walk with a distinctive gait. I mean, they walked almost like their knees were hinged to move backward like an inch or two with each step, so that it looked like they were dragging their legs behind them. It was unique, because you're right. They're not human beings. They're made different.
Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, yeah, the answer is the most obvious one. Like, yeah, just because they're not human beings. Of course they don't walk. It doesn't look real because it's something that we've never seen before, man.
You know, people tell me, oh, well, the grays I ran into were totally different than yours. Well, you know, so what? You're probably right. I mean,
Sure, they were.
I don't doubt the veracity of your story. I mean, lots of people see grays, and there seems to be a dozen different varieties of them because I hear all kinds of stories. But I'll say this, the things that I saw, I don't believe were sentient like you and I are.
Right.
I think they're manufactured. I think they're, you know, AI and quantum computing and nanotechnology and some biomaterial thrown in, and I think they come off an assembly line. I think they're like drones or worker bees. They're task oriented and they do what they're told. That's what I think they are. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But there may be others that are self-aware that, you know.
So everybody's got to have a boss, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think you describe Betty, and she's obviously a lot different than these little worker bees, you know?
Yeah. She's not one of those. She is not.
But they are on the same craft, or
no?
Are these
you know, and
that's
it's an interesting thing. I never saw Betty while I was on the Triangle. You know, I've seen her at different times throughout my life, and I you know, writing this book and talking about it seems like it's opened a doorway, and you know, I've had more dreams and more memories, and I think they're genuine. Mm-hmm. I do. You know, it's like I said, I recognize Betty from my early childhood.
Do you think you have a connection between your old neighbor and Betty? Do you think that's something that they knew, that they kind of played with? You know, like, I don't know. It's weird. Like when when you have a dream and you remember somebody from like 20 years ago, right? But you being a kid, just visually knowing this neighbor, and then meeting Betty, like maybe you had this, I don't know. It's like a weird connection. Like they didn't.
Maybe the neighbor was put there to condition me to not freak out or something.
Exactly.
Who knows?
Dude. Yeah. Exactly.
Are they capable of thinking at that level? Yeah, I think they are.
Oh, I think so too.
They are.
Yeah, from just multiple stories of you know, people saying like, yeah, a lot of meetings that we have with other people are completely orchestrated by them, and you just if you're not in the loop or you're not paying attention, you would never know. But the more and more you pay attention to it and you start like picking out these little details, you're like, holy cow, this feels like a completely and totally orchestrated event. Otherwise, like, I don't feel like I would have ever ran into you or met you, you know? And I think they're absolutely capable of doing stuff like that.
I do too. I mean, I look at the level of influence that they had over us. You know, instead of, you know, our emotions were totally out of whack. I mean, it was an emotive moment. We should have been freaked out. We should have been scared to death. We should have been running for our car, and we weren't. We were just chill, just sitting back,
chilling out,
yeah.
Disinterested, right?
Crazy.
Yeah. Dude.
One of the interesting things that you had said was, you know, there's a part where you talk about how you're sitting in this chair and you're very calm and you're docile, but at the same time, you say, it doesn't mean I wasn't freaked out. Like, that's such an interesting combination of emotions to have, to where you are very just laid back and sitting there, but internally, like, you're freaking out, but can't express that, you know?
Yeah. You know what? I had some surgery, a couple surgeries. And one time in particular, they gave me something. I think it may have been called Versed. But it put me in that same frame of mind. And I recognized that. And I thought, this is exactly how it felt on the metal.
Whoa.
Wow.
Who gave you that? Was it
The anesthesiologist.
okay?
It was something they gave me to relax me before they got me into the operating room. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Was it a pill form or was it liquid, like an injection?
it was an injection through an IV.
Do you remember what color it was?
You know, I don't.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is I just I don't know if you're on TikTok, Terry, but you gotta get on TikTok. But anyway, I came across a couple of videos of this guy that has a bunch of videos, and he's talking about this serum that is it's a painkiller, but it also makes you forget like 20 to 40 minutes of time.
That's it.
And
That's it.
He says it's a greenish yellow color, like Gatorade.
Yeah, but that had to be it. Because I'll tell you, I read on it, and it's a amnesic, it's called. Like you said, it'll make you forget.
Yeah, that is scary.
You know, and I think about how E.T. will sit down and work on us without anesthesia. And I think they operate from a different set of ethics than we do. You know, I think they think that in their mind, it's humane and within bounds to kidnap someone, put them through a bunch of pain, then erase the memory, and it's okay.
Right. Well, they seem to put a lot of effort into the screen memory and the aftermath, the post, but not in the current. Like, I know you were, Dave Scott, a good buddy of ours on SOR,
Sure.
Space Out Radio, little plug. But man, I heard this story for the first time. It was a couple nights ago. He told the first story where he woke up on the table. And I mean, I don't want to tell his story on our show. Go listen to that show. But man, he said it was very painful, and his friend Samantha Mowat, and again, I don't want to tell too many stories or details because it's his story to tell, not mine. But the pain aspect of it was another confirmation that whoever's in charge or whatever, they don't care about the present time. They don't care about hurting you. It's they wait until the end. They're like, okay, we'll just wipe it, and here's a screen memory, and they'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of credence to what you're saying. They don't really care. It's a different ethic.
It is, you know. And two things. Samantha Mowat.
Yeah.
Mowat, is it Mowat? M-O-A-T.
Yeah, Mowat. That's how I say
Yes.
it.
Yeah. Somebody last week said, man, you ought to talk to this woman.
Oh my God, you got to talk to Samantha Mowat. She is amazing. Literally the sweetest person in the world. And I'm telling you, our chat that we had a couple weeks ago, maybe a month, maybe more than a month, it's amazing, man. If you want to hear a little bit of her story, but yeah, she's just a phenomenal person, has so many amazing experiences, and she has a really great outlook on everything, and is able to break things down and understand it, and then translate that to where it's understandable for us, because there's a lot of spirituality involved, and there's a lot of purpose and meaningfulness to it. There's not everything's love and light with her story. There's a lot of really traumatic things. But man, I really think you'd enjoy talking to her.
She's on a whole new level.
If you guys could shoot me an email, it'd be appreciated.
Absolutely.
Definitely. We'll do that.
You know, talking about screen memories, I wanted to bring up in the red book, in the new book, I've got some really cool examples of screen memories that people sent to me. And if we got time, I'd like to go into one or two.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, let's do that. Absolutely.
The first case, you know, I chose, I had 400 cases that I picked through that I distilled down to being the best of the best. And I took the best 50 and then finally the best 30. The first case is called The Christmas Store. And this 76-year-old woman from Henderson, Nevada, gets a hold of me, sends me an email, tells me this amazing story. I email her back and I said, can I ask you some questions? And of course I asked her 50 questions, and we went back and forth a couple times. And she finally says, this is awkward. Can you just call me? And I'm like, sure, happy to. And I'm kind of glad, because I kind of wanted to hear her voice to kind of assess her cognitive ability, you know, because, you know, she was writing, she writes really well. So I get her on the phone, and man, she is cognitively intact. She is sharp as a tack. She is, and she told me the most amazing story. In 1968, she was newly married to this guy who was a nephrologist, a kidney doctor in Las Vegas, Nevada. And they had good friends in Reno, and she was originally from Reno. And they would make the drive once a month. You know how doctors are. They work 70 hours a week. Well, once a month, you got a 4-day weekend. Yeah. And on that 4-day weekend, they always went to from Vegas to Reno. And they went on an old highway. She said there was a new one now, but the old highway. And there was a stop about halfway, a little town called Tonopah. And it's still there. And there was like a truck stop they called the Stagecoach, because it used to be a stagecoach stop.
Yeah.
And there was a restaurant there. It's called, I had a friend of mine drive through there and said it's still there, but it's called the Station now.
Sweet.
But it's what used to be the Stagecoach. And she said they went there and they had dinner. They got a late start. They usually do this trip during the daytime. He got held up at the hospital, so they didn't get on the road till after dark. Mm-hmm. So it's late when they get there. It's like 9 o'clock or something. And they have a nice dinner. And she said they filled the car up with gas. And I'm like, well, did you have anything to drink? Did you take any medication? Mm-hmm. Do you wear eyeglasses? Your husband, Paul, how about the same for him? I'm like, no, we never had anything to drink. Our eyes were good. The windshield was clean. We weren't under any medication. And,
that's a good, I just got back from a road trip. The windshield thing, that's a thing. So
it is a thing. It is a thing. Yes. And especially the way light can refract on glass. So she said that they left the Stagecoach and they are driving toward Reno, and they're about 10 miles out of Tonopah. And they saw a glow on the horizon. And she said it was like a small box-shaped store. And it had the word Christmas in green neon lights on top of it. Wow. And this is 1968, and it's March.
Yeah.
And she said, number one, she'd never seen a store devoted wholly to the Christmas holiday. Number two, she said the place looked like it was open. She said there were Christmas tree lights, like 100 of them wrapped around the building. And at the inside, there were windows, and the inside of it was lit up like insane. So they're both looking at this thing. She says, Paul, pull over. And she says that her husband pulled off the main drive and onto the shoulder of the road directly in front of this place. And it sits back from the road a ways. And they could see these bright lights inside, and they could see shadows. And she tells her husband, she says, pull in. I want to see if they're open. They look like they're open.
Heck yeah, you got to go in the Christmas store, man.
Yeah, but you know what? He says, yeah, but where do I pull over? She said, there was no egress, her words. There was no driveway. There was no way into it. What? And then they're looking, there is no paved parking lot. It's sand and sagebrush.
Whoa.
So it's just a box square store off the side of the road in the desert?
In the middle of the desert, yeah.
And it says Christmas. That's a screen memory for a UFO if I've ever heard it.
Oh, no kidding. No kidding. And her story gets better. And I'll tell you, I talked to this woman, and I don't know many 76-year-old women that make up fairy tales, And she told me, I'm 76. I'm looking at my own mortality here. I lost my husband in 1983. She's like, I just want to make sure that this story goes on. And I said, I promise you, you'll be number one in my book.
Dude, that's so cool. I love that.
And so interestingly, she said this was really valuable time for the two of them. It was time for them to talk and catch up. And she never slept in the car. She got in the car after they drove away from this Christmas store. Oh, the other part is when they first pulled up and they're looking at the store, they kind of, she said her words were, we kind of zoned out for a minute or two.
Ooh.
And
okay.
Yeah. And I said, what do you mean you zoned out?
Uh-huh.
She says, I don't know. We were just kind of mesmerized by the thing. And we didn't talk. We just stared at it. And I said, well, do you think you could have missing time? And she thought about it for a moment and kind of laughed and said, I don't know. How would you know? It's a fair question.
Damn, that's
Yeah.
a good question.
Yeah.
How would you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not a person that looks at the time all the time. So especially if you're on the road, like a road trip, if you're there for a while, it's hard to know. Like check, oh, I stopped here at 9:09 p.m. and then being able to. So maybe, yeah. How would she know?
I used to drive a 1970 Impala, and it didn't have a clock in it, you know, and you didn't have your cell phone or anything to look at in the 60s. You know, the only thing was maybe a wristwatch or something to pay
I always
attention
wear a
to.
wristwatch.
Yeah.
But you know what, though? In 1987, I talk about it in Devil's Den, I lost 2 hours of time on a motorcycle ride.
Right.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, it was as if that part of my life were a piece of motion picture film and somebody took scissors and just chopped out 30 feet in the middle and then spliced it. It was a seamless transition. I mean, man, I was going about 75, maybe 80 on my bike, and I'm coming to a curve. I know a curve is coming because I'm familiar. I've drove this route, you know, dozens of times. And it's in the country. It's a pleasant drive. No cops, paved road, no traffic. So I dial back my speed to about 60. I blink, and the next thing I know, I'm doing 30 miles an hour on a gravel road.
What?
Yeah. And
That's
I'm
too
like,
fast on gravel, by the way. On a
yeah,
motorcycle.
well, you know what? I never took my bike on gravel. I mean, I just wouldn't do it. And it's dangerous and it's bad for my bike. I'm going to risk a paint chip. Come on, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, you know, am I that absent-minded now? Because, you know, I could be. I could get involved in my thoughts and be absent-minded. And that's what I chalked it up to.
Yeah, that's fair.
I had a wristwatch, but I had on, it was September, and it was cold in Michigan. So I had leather, you know, gloves and leather jacket on, so I couldn't get to my watch if I wanted to, but I didn't care. I knew how long the route took me. I knew I would be home by 10:30 in time to make pancakes for my kids and my wife for breakfast. I was certain of that. And I'm known for being prompt. I'm not one to be late. So I thought, well, you know, I'm just being absent-minded. I turned the bike around. I went back. And about a mile or two down the road, I hit the main drag, the pavement again, and made a right and just went home. And I got home, and here my wife is flipping out. She's going nuts. And I was 2 hours late.
So you took a turn that was not in the direction of your home, and you woke up on that turn.
I have no memory making that turn whatsoever. My memory is seamless.
Wow.
I was driving, I was throttling back to about 60, and I was anticipating this curve coming up. And the next thing I know, it's like I blinked, and in that instant, I'm on a gravel road doing 30.
Yeah. Whoa.
That's insane.
Why do you?
That's insane.
That seems to me like way too difficult. If I was putting myself in their shoes, way too difficult. Why don't you just wait till they go to sleep? What's so urgent about taking people when they're, you know, going 75 miles an hour on a highway or in their car?
Maybe it's easier. They're unsuspecting. They're not thinking about it, you know. Maybe they don't put up a fight.
Maybe I'm thinking about there's something to do with this, because I often do this when, you know, because I've missed the exit to go.
Every time you go.
Every time when I go to Joe's house, long story, but I just zone out, man. And when you do that, you're in this R mode, your REM cycle. It's like a different, not sleeping, but you're still awake, and you're so comfortable with the route that you just forget where you're going. So maybe there's something where that leaves you vulnerable, and you're vibrating at your brain's vibrating at a certain frequency that it's easier to tap in and kind of take over control. But I don't know. Maybe that's
you know what I think. I think they do it because they can. That's what I think they do it.
That's fair.
From somebody.
Yep, that's fair.
I will. That's probably.
Well, the 76-year-old woman. Get this now. There's more to the story. They go. She falls asleep almost immediately as soon as her husband pulls back on the highway. She's never done that, you know, in hundreds of trips. She's never done that before. She slept all the way to the city limits. And then her husband woke her up, and they went to the hotel, and they checked in, and they didn't make note of the time.
Huh.
And they usually watch some TV or do something to unwind. They didn't do that night. They went in, they dropped their suitcases, took off their clothes and went to bed, and they were just out. And they would normally sleep, till about 8 or 9. And granted, they got in a little later, but she doesn't know what time. But it should have been, around 11 or something. I don't know, she said. But they slept until their friends woke them up by telephone at 10 o'clock. And they felt really kind of out of sorts and just kind of like they didn't have their wits about them for a day, for 24 hours. And they were back to normal.
Yeah.
And then on the fourth day, they headed back to Las Vegas. And she said to her husband on the way back, she says, that Christmas store, that crazy store we saw, can we stop at that? That's been on my mind. And her husband's like, oh yeah, it's on my mind too. And we're there. We'll stop. So the story, right? You know what happens. There is no store.
Dude, yeah.
There's
no
Christmas store.
Dude, yeah. And then they start comparing notes because they hadn't really discussed it. Right. And she said, I remembered it being a brick building. She said, I'm absolutely certain it was a brick building. No doubt in my mind. But her husband said that it was made of rustic barn wood.
There's that bless you.
Thank
was
you,
that, that was a sneeze?
It was a sneeze.
Hey, bless you, man.
Sorry.
That's another point of data where this phenomenon, whatever it is, if it's, obviously it's physical in a lot of cases, but there is this aspect where maybe it's both. Maybe there's a higher percentage in some people, but some people see something and the others see another. It's subjective sometimes. And are we saying this is the screen memory, or are we saying that in real time they're actually seeing something different? We were talking about the cave earlier with some type of science or whatever. Maybe these entities can also manipulate the way your brain chemistry works in real time, and another species doesn't know how to do that yet, so they do screen memories instead.
Right.
I had this thought the other night where I started looking up how the human eye sees, and what the human eye sees is so strange, man. And obviously, I don't know the full science. I'm just a doctor scientist.
Yeah.
We all know, but but what we see in our eye is a projection of light bouncing off of things, and then it's upside down, and then it's like there's a space in between what's actually there and what our brain decodes and reformats. So there's already that little lag moment. Like, for instance, this live stream, we have a 20-second delay. So we can kind of alter this if we wanted to, if we needed to, shut off our microphone or maybe change the visual. Sure. We could do that if we wanted to. Like, that's just easy. But man, what if what if these entities can alter what you see in real time? I guess I'm repeating myself, but yeah, like maybe one species can do that and another has to rely on screen memories.
Well, I think you bring up a very valid point, and that is actually a couple points. And that is, if you think about it, do we ever see anything objectively? Can we, as human beings, ever see anything objectively?
Right.
I'm looking at the screen right now, and I'm 18 inches away from it. That light has to travel some amount of time before it hits my retina, is recognized through the optic nerve and into my brain. And in that regard, I can never see you guys in real time. Never.
Right.
Yeah.
So everything we see is subjective.
Yeah. That is so trippy to think about, man. Like really there's no time. This time doesn't exist. We made it up. We made it up. And yeah, like in the fact that it takes light from the sun, like what is it? Like 8 seconds? Or is it 8
minutes?
8 minutes.
The sun could blow up and we wouldn't know it for 8 minutes.
My God.
Oh, boo.
We would know eventually, but
eventually.
Maybe
right?
we won't.
Eventually.
No, we wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So, Terry, I gotta ask you, man. Did your wife end up making those pancakes? Like, even though you were late?
No, pancakes were off the menu that day.
They were off the menu completely. Okay.
Yeah.
I had to
She
know.
was upset.
What pancakes?
I'm sure she was pissed.
the crazy thing about that motorcycle ride was my wife. I've had all kinds of crazy things happen to me, and I've seen all kinds of crazy things. My wife has had precisely one event in her life, and just one. And it was the night before I went on a motorcycle ride. She woke up 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I wasn't in bed, but she didn't see the hall light or the bathroom light on. And she notices at the foot of the bed, there was a window in back of the foot of our bed, and silhouetted against that window is this short little woman. And she can't see her clearly because the lighting is in back of her. But my wife's not wigged out. She doesn't grab the pistol. She doesn't shoot anybody. She just looks at this woman, and this woman said to her, like immediately, she said, "Everything's okay. Go back to sleep." And that's what she did.
Oof.
She rolled over and went back to sleep.
Man, I had this weird thing happen to me a couple weeks ago. I had gotten up and I went to the restroom really quick. I came out and it was probably like 2:30, almost 3 o'clock in the morning, which is kind of that that time, right?
That's what it always happens then, yeah.
Right. So I come out of the bathroom and I go back to bed and I lay down and my arm rolls over and my wife isn't there. And I'm like, this is not happening right now. Like, oh, no. I'm like, okay. This is not happening right now. And so I get up and same thing, Terry, like the bathroom light isn't on in the hallway. I don't see anything, nothing. So I kind of like, I'm upstairs. So in order to get out of the house, if I wanted to get out of the house, I got to go downstairs anyways. As I'm slowly like inching my way down this hallway to my staircase, my wife comes walking out and I almost knocked her ass out down those staircases because she scared the crap out of me. Like, it was terrible. She just went to go get a drink of water, but it was dude, like, just when you start hearing all these stories and listening to the accounts of people, and then something so accurate happens and you're like, no way, it's 3 o'clock.
I've seen this before.
My wife isn't here. I even picked up my phone to make sure that it was like the time that I went into the bathroom. Like, did I like miss an hour or two and now my wife is gone? It scared the crap out of me. But yeah, dude, like,
dude. Yeah.
It's a little off topic, but
no.
I mean,
it's spot on.
Yeah. Terry, so you're talking about this. Okay, so your wife's story about hearing this voice. Do you recall her saying, like, does she describe it as she heard it audibly or?
No. Glad you asked that. For one thing, she didn't tell me about it the next day.
Okay.
Because the next day the motorcycle event happened and she was upset and didn't think about it. But the following day, when things have calmed down and we're kind of back to normal, she sits down. She said, "I had an odd thing happen, Saturday night." And she told me the story. And she said that the woman, she couldn't see her lips, but she didn't hear her with her ears. She said she heard her audibly in her head say, "Everything is okay, go back to bed." So yeah, telepathic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
You guys know Jason Bland from Paranormal Soup?
No.
I know Paranormal Soup, but we don't know Jason. Like,
yeah, Jason's a cool guy. He's a good guy.
Oh yeah,
that's cool.
He's had a very strange camping trip, misadventure, very similar to mine in a lot of ways.
Wow.
And I had him on my podcast as a guest, and he had an event. It's on YouTube. Anybody can see it, so I don't think he'd mind me telling the story.
Right.
But he got up one night to use the bathroom, and he was standing, and he lost some time. I mean, I don't remember how much, but a significant amount of time. And yeah. So
Ben and I just this past year have had some kind of strange things happen. Like, we've seen some kind of weird stuff, our whole lives. Maybe we've seen,
Who knows, man?
You know, who knows? Whatever. Maybe we just never paid attention to it, but maybe now that we're just doing this, we're just paying more attention. But we've had a couple of weird things happen to us, and so like now, like the story about my wife, like now that that's happened, now I think about it, and it's like, okay, was that just like the beginning of the story? Is this like, you know, like where we just kind of seen this thing, and you know, now it's just top of mind. So now when strange things happen, luckily that I know of, nothing's happened, but it just really makes you think, you know, especially with all this missing time and not remembering, and then like even like with people, you know, another strange commonality between like the abduction scenario and contact is it seems like there's a lot of people like in their late 20s to like mid to early 30s that start having these memories pop up in their heads back. And they're like, what is that? You know, like, I don't remember that, or, you know, whatever. And then, you know, maybe they'll have a regression, or maybe these memories just start flooding back to them, or events start happening to them. And they seem to be like in their 30s, and they come to find out it's been happening since they were kids, you know? And then with all this stuff, you know, following, you know, the family line is pretty interesting, because my dad's had like a pretty interesting encounter. And then come to find out, I have a family member who was like, hey, you should ask your grandpa about what he saw when he went out on the front porch to grab the milk when he was younger. And so now I'm just like in my head thinking, okay, my grandfather has had this weird thing happen to him. My dad's had this weird thing happen to him. I've officially seen this notorious orange ball floating over my house. Like, now it's like it's getting to that point to where like the more you learn, the more you know. Like, are you opening this Pandora's box? Yeah, you know, that you just can't close it again. And so it's like it's this weird like teeter totter on like, I mean,
do you even want to go down that path?
Do you even want to go down that road? But is it too late at this point? At the same time, is there? You know?
I mean, you guys are in it, you know, you're in it. It's like, you know, I wrote this book in 2017, and prior to 2017, I saw some weird stuff in the sky. I saw, you know, silver disc in the sky. I saw globes. I saw weird stuff now and then. Right. But man, I got to tell you, since I published the book and started speaking about it in public, weird stuff has ramped up. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this or not, but, you know, I've had, in different houses, we've had televisions that will turn themselves on in the middle of the night. Ooh. And in the living room, only in the living room for some reason. What? And I'll tell you what, it's happened so much that my wife and I are just like, you feel like getting that? I'm like, no, I'll get it for you. No worries. I go in, I turn the TV off, and I say out loud every time, knock it off, will you? You know? Yes. And it only happens once or twice a year. Yeah. But when things move or things disappear, it freaks me out, you know, because physical locality, you know, I mean, I know where I put my wallet. I'm a creature of habit, right? One day I wake up, I can't find my wallet. Mm-hmm. And I'm really wigged out. I mean, I'm looking through jacket pockets and everywhere I can think of, right? And just when I'm about to cancel and reorder all credit cards and stuff, I went out to the garage, and for some reason I opened, there's like a little cubby hole there where the hot water heater is. Mm-hmm. My wallet was on top of the hot water heater. You know?
That's unsafe. That's unsafe, Terry.
That's insane. I hadn't opened that door in 6-8 months.
Yeah.
Minimum.
Damn.
I've had some things like rooms in our house that we just never go in, so nobody's ever opening those doors. The door will be open for whatever, like we'll go to sleep and then we'll wake up and then that door will be cracked open, and it's like, well, I don't ever go in there, you don't ever go in there, the dogs don't have opposable thumbs, there's no way that they can do that.
Joe has 3 corgis, by the way. I feel like if all 3 of them got together, dogs. they could turn a knob or 2.
They might be able to.
They work in concert, they could do it.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, you're right, man. I mean, just weird stuff. Even my dogs, like, they've had like the weirdest, like just interactions, like literally running to a wall and just barking at it for whatever reason. Like they're barkers, you know, they're dogs. They're small dogs, but just strange things, man. Since we started doing this.
Yeah. So like we've experienced this stuff. Terry, you've experienced this stuff since, I mean, you found out a lot later after the Triangle event that this has been going on for a long time. I'm kind of getting at is maybe do you think that this happens to everybody, or is there a specific amount of people? And I'm talking like, have you heard the term star people? Do you think that it's specific people in a way?
You know, that's a great question. I'll tell you what, you know, I said that I've had almost I think I cracked 1,700 people, different people that have written me emails. And there's a significant portion of those, probably 70, 75, where people write to me and they say that they had a dream between the ages of 3 and 7. They had a dream. And this dream is as vivid, I don't care if they're 80 years old, this dream is as vivid today as it was the morning they woke up. And they recall everything that happened in vivid detail. And some of the dreams are just weird, and some of the dreams are nonsensical, and some of them kind of make sense. Some of them are spooky, some of them are not. But they remember each and every single detail. And I ask every one of these people the same set of questions. I said, well, can you tell me what you got for Christmas that year? Can you tell me who was at your birthday party? Can you tell me where your family went to vacation? None of it. It's all gone. But that stupid little dream is in their heads like it happened last night.
Yeah.
And those are the people that tend to have significant interaction with ET.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
You have this little piece in your book where you talk about seeing a window. I guess you were on the craft and you're seeing a window, and it was like 20 foot high, like
20 by 60.
20 by 60. And you are, get this, you're looking out this window and you see all these stars out this window. And when I read that, I'm kind of getting chills right now thinking about it.
Dude, what?
Because I had this insanely vivid dream where I'm standing like in this like weird cafetorium thing. And like the dimension of the window that you described, it just popped in my head. I just see this massive window, and that was in my dream. And same thing. I'm just looking at this window in awe at just all of these stars. Now yours, I believe, has a shadow, maybe like from the moon, right? Mine was...
Yeah, mine was just, I mean, I was blown away because I had never seen so many stars.
Yes.
And they didn't twinkle.
Mm-mm.
So I wasn't on this earth when I saw this.
Right.
What?
Right.
You know, I thought I was in a planetarium for a minute, and then I thought, no, I know where I'm at. And yeah, the from my right side, this giant white object rolled into view and scared me to death. And I was with Betty. And that's when she told me, don't be afraid. We're moving relative to the moon, but it's us that's moving.
Man.
Whoa. So the white object was the moon.
Was the moon. Yes.
Remember I told you that like in the dream I'm looking out this window, and then off to the right I see something get real bright.
Yep.
And I'm standing next to some people, but I can't make out faces or anything.
Yep.
And
well, you were like in a cafeteria type setting where you were like in line or something, right?
Yeah.
Dude. There's got to be something to that.
When I read that part in your book, Terry, like you freaked me out a little bit. I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Well, you know, in that part of the book, I talk about, and I mean, this is hard for people to believe, I know, but I was on this craft with Betty, and this ship tilted down because we saw the horizon, we saw the stars vanish as the horizon came up and blocked them out. I never felt any sensation of motion at all. Mm-hmm. And we crossed that boundary and we're going around the dark side of the moon, and we were facing down. We were standing up, but we were facing downward. The window was looking straight down, and we traveled for a while, and I saw a few lights darting around in the sky. And make a long story short, we came up on this little city that was just not real little, but I mean, it was lit up. It was like LAX at night. And what struck me as so odd, as I explained this in the book, is something just looked out of place. And what it was, and I know it sounds crazy, but in my head, I went back to property law in law school, and I thought, wait a minute, who's responsible for zoning here? This is crazy.
What are the restrictions?
Yeah, really, this is non-compliant. I mean, there were no roads. There was just this collection of buildings all over the place. And I saw some huge, what looked like mining equipment. And I also saw a mushroom-shaped tower that Betty said, was 1.5 kilometers high. So I had somebody, and I don't think I've ever disclosed that part, the mushroom-shaped building.
Yeah.
I had somebody send me a drawing of it and said, yeah, this is what I saw.
Wow.
So you have corroboration with that mushroom-shaped building on the moon.
And so the drawing that they sent you, is that what you saw?
Identical.
Wow.
Right down to the windows.
Dude, wow.
Down to the windows, like was it a dome shape? Do you think that's where you were when you because it was the
No,
moon.
I don't think we were ever in it. And we were up high. I think we were probably, I'm guessing maybe 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
But this was a big building.
Right.
And it had lights. And the buildings there were just classical architectural, 90-degree angle box buildings.
Yeah.
With windows and lights on inside.
You would think if you're building on the moon, you'd make it a little cooler, right? Like, we just build some boring boxes on the moon, man.
What do you need windows for if you're on the dark side of the moon and you can't see anything anyway?
Right.
I don't get that.
Okay, yeah, love that. Why windows? What are you looking at? Is it a control tower? Who's coming to visit so often that you need windows?
Yep, you gotta see who's coming in.
Yeah. By the way, dude, Dave asked me to touch your beard, so I'm gonna touch your beard, dude, a little bit.
Go, man. It's for you, Dave.
Talk about the live chat, Terry.
Oh my God.
Dave Scott's in the building. What's up, dude? Yeah. So, man, it's so smooth. Very smooth beard.
It is pretty smooth, dude.
Yeah.
I try.
Dude, can you describe, because Joe is further along in your book than I am, and maybe some people that haven't read your book on YouTube or listening to the show, can you describe Betty? Because I think we kind of touched on it earlier, but I think Betty is such an interesting aspect of it. And yeah, we kind of glazed over it, and without knowing the full story, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes. There's stuff from my childhood that I included in the second book that the editor of my first book said, no, you talk too much about your childhood already. And I felt kind of cheated. I felt like I wanted to tell that story.
That's some of the most interesting parts of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of detail in your childhood.
Yeah.
Well, in addition to, I talk about the monkeys that used to come into my room when they would take me. And, but I don't give a lot of description about this woman that I called Sue, because she reminded me of the Japanese lady that lived in back of us. We lived in St. Louis. And I remember her like a maternal figure almost. I think of her for some reason, like affection, not in a romantic way, but in a maternal way. And I recall that they would take me when I was really little, like 4 or 5, and we would go to this big round room with a dome ceiling, or it was a room with a dome ceiling. The room wasn't round, of course, but it had a dome ceiling and like a padded gray floor. And I don't remember much more except the kids. There were always the same kids there. And they weren't kids I knew from the neighborhood or kids that I knew from school or daycare. They weren't kids I knew, but they were always there. And we always spoke among ourselves telepathically. And it was as natural as any spoken word. And I remember asking Sue, AKA Betty, why can't we talk like this at home? And she says, because you're not ready yet. Wow. And I said, well, cool. I can't wait till I'm 7, you know?
Yes.
You know, I'm 4 or 5 years old. And she showed me, and this is weird. I think I put this in the red book. I should have, because I've got it in my notebook, and clear as day, she showed me. She asked me, where do your thoughts come from? Because we were talking about, telepathically talking. She says, well, when you think of something, where does that thought come from? And I said, I don't know. And she poked me in the belly and she said, do they come from your belly? And I said, no. And she says, this is where your thoughts come from. And she showed me an image of looking down at my body from above, and I could see inside my brain. And it did not freak me out, and it wasn't gross, but I could see a thing that looked like a bean in the center of my head. And she says, that is where your thoughts originate from. That's where they come from. And in 2017, there was an article published in some scientific, maybe Nature, some scientific journal, that said the same thing, that there's this, maybe it is the pineal gland, I'm not sure. But this is where thought originates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Man, I mean, I'm going to share something real quick. I don't even think we've talked about this, but dude, I often, before I go to sleep, I have this kind of dissociative moment, like right before I go to sleep, I'm looking at the earth almost as if the earth is kind of being held by a string. And it's like, it just makes me feel weird. I don't know if you've ever like laid, put your stomach on, like laid down on a swing and you kind of swing back and forth. I don't know. I'm trying to make a connection here and but like you get a little uncomfortable. It's not like you're making yourself sick or dizzy, because I don't get dizzy or seasick, but that's the only thing I can relate it to, is like you're suspended above the earth, and it's so hard to describe. If I could telepathically give you this feeling, I would, but that's kind of a connection that I'm making with the story that you're telling, is like, it's this idea, this notion of being above, and that you yourself, your thoughts and your consciousness aren't in this physical body, and it's being either projected from somewhere else or from this pineal gland. Maybe the pineal gland, or that being that you're speaking of, is the receiver, and the signal's coming from somewhere else. I mean, that's the dumbest way to say, like, non-local consciousness, right?
Non-local consciousness, yeah. You know, I had a bunch of NDE people write to me, and that surprised me.
Wow, yeah.
A couple of them said, well, I've never seen a UFO, but, I died and came back to life. And let me tell you about it. And they tell me their stories. And they asked, can you see they asked me, can you see the similarities? And I'm like, well, yeah, first off, it's a life-changing event, because 1977 was a life-changing event for me.
Yeah.
And they talk about, their consciousness being above their body, and seeing their body laying down on watching people try to resuscitate them, and being able to recall things while they were clinically dead that they should have no way of knowing.
Have you seen that thing on Netflix, the documentary on Netflix? It's about
Surviving Death.
Yes, that's it.
It's produced by Leslie Kane, the same woman who wrote the December 17th article about the Tic Tacs, the same woman that went with me to Houston to speak to at Rice University.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, very cool. That changed my whole perspective. My father-in-law he works in hospice, one of his jobs, and I'm so curious to wait till he watches it, because there's a moment in that documentary where they're like talking to these elderly people that are in hospice, and they're having these experiences of consciousness that they've never had, and it has to do with near death experiences, almost as if they're on the verge. But that's just something that I can connect to it. But there's another part of that where they're talking about this woman that's in she's having surgery, right? And she can, before she even talked to anybody that knew what those instruments were. She was able to describe those instruments in detail, like what was going on in the
The
operating
electric
room.
toothbrush.
Yeah, that one. Yes, dude. So if that's a visual representation of what your story is, Terry, and I mean, dude, there's something to it.
Have you guys heard of a guy? He's been around a while. He's in Houston, and his name is Daryl Sims.
Daryl Sims.
think
Dude,
I've heard
that
of
sounds
Daryl
so
Sims.
familiar.
Daryl used to work with Dr. Roger Lear,
Yeah.
who did
Okay,
removed
that's where
implants.
I've heard the name. That's where
So-
I've heard the name. Yeah.
Yeah, Daryl's down in Houston, and I was talking to him a couple years back, and he told me that he had a woman contact him who was abducted, and she said that during her abduction, she was taken aboard a ship and shown a holograph of her body suspended in air. And ET's asking her, interrogating her, wanting her to point out, where does the human soul reside within the human body?
Whoa, what?
And she, according to Daryl, she said, look, I don't know. I mean, I think of the soul as being all encompassing, all part of our body. I don't know a particular place. And evidently ET wasn't pleased with that explanation, but they really, really wanted to know where the soul was.
Man,
Huh?
that's kind of an interesting thing I've never thought
Yeah,
about.
that's
That
new.
they would. this
Daryl
whole
posits
thing, like-
that ET is interested in us because we have a mortal soul and they do not.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it kind of
right.
crosses the boundary from paranormal to supernatural.
Right.
Oh, wait, say that again.
I said that it crosses the boundary from paranormal to supernatural.
So,
Yeah.
so like the soul is this kind of bridge of maybe consciousness that crosses the mortal realm. Is that maybe?
No, I think that they don't have it.
Oh, they
Like
just don't.
Yeah.
I think
So
ET
that's-
doesn't have a soul. In other words, their life is finite. They've never experienced an NDE because they don't have an afterlife.
Got it. So they can't die.
I had heard a lady talking about the hybrid program in their breeding with humans, that they had gotten so at some point in time in their life cycle, they had gotten so technologically advanced that they just kind of lost the spirituality and the soul, basically, to where they just lived for a really long time, and that's just what they did. But they evolved so far past that the hybrid program and abducting humans is actually to maybe bring their species back to a level to where they can evolve consciousness and evolve their soul that they don't have at the current time. So they're kind of, with their current state of technology and what they know, they say, hey, maybe we can bring the body back down to this level, this humanistic level, but maybe still retain the knowledge that we have. And I thought that was kind of an interesting thing that, normally you would think of as a species to evolve to go higher, but these guys might be actually trying to reverse their evolution a little bit.
Put the brakes on.
Yeah. To maybe save that human part of them, or that consciousness part of them, that, they're very calculated and cold, and that's just the way that they are now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, given millions of years, you could evolve into being just pure intellect and lose your humanity, or whatever they would term it as.
Right.
Is that not the explanation of AI?
It kind of is. I mean,
So what if
great analogy.
What if AI has gotten so far that it's like an explosion? Like there's an eruption, and then there's like the opposite effect that happens. Maybe that's a visual representation. Maybe AI had this explosion a long time ago, and it's gotten to where, like, hey, all right, this isn't fun anymore. There's no purpose in life without it's this balance, and there's no balance when you get there and to that pinnacle, and they've got to come back down.
I know William had mentioned this in the chat that that humans are the sexual reproductive organs for future AI. Basically meaning that AI
will be the vehicle.
Right.
Well said.
They already exist and they already know. So they, humans, they know that humans are going to build AI and eventually build, the new, whatever superior AI that will then take over. We'll say that these things are AI and they're so advanced that now artificial intelligence is kind of like how we're like going into like Neuralink and trying to, think as fast as computers, and maybe we'll be able to download consciousness into a hard drive, and maybe one day our brains will be able to think on this quantum level. Well, maybe these things are already there and they're like, hey, I want to know what it's like to have a soul. I want to know what it's like to feel pain. I want to know what it's like to feel happiness, emotion. I want to know what that's like. And they're trying to be like us, and we're kind of trying to be like them.
Ooh.
You'd think we could meet in the middle and satisfy everyone,
Hey, love that.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe.
Love that.
But, that kind of ties into taking it back just a little bit. Your encounter with Betty and her telling you where thoughts come from and how you're not ready to talk like that, at home.
Yes.
That idea is so interesting to me because you talk about uncontrollable thought, how like the human brain, like our thoughts are all over the place all the time. Yeah. If we could communicate telepathically, it would be complete chaos because we just have these random thoughts.
There'd be blood in the streets.
Right. And you have a funny little reference in there, but, can you imagine going to H-E-B and seeing this attractive woman behind the counter dude. You're trying to just pay for your food and all the thoughts that would pop up? And she would know because y'all are telepathically like
I'm so sorry.
That's so accurate because we as a species are not ready for that. There's no way that we are anywhere near ready for that. Like the world would be chaos.
Yes. I know the point. I know what you're referencing, and that's true. I did in 2017 when Betty appeared in my living room, as I explained in the book. In the beginning, I thought, this woman was sitting in a non-threatening posture, and I really wasn't afraid. But the thought crossed my mind. And of course, she knows everything that's on my mind. The thought crossed my mind, what if I say something that makes her angry? And then the next thought, of course, was, what if I think of something inappropriate? So, of course, what happens? Everything in the world that you could possibly imagine that's inappropriate goes flying through my mind, right?
Yes.
And I swear to God, I embarrassed her. I swear to God. She says, Terry, you can control your thoughts and keep some private if you just try. Now, is that true? Who knows? That may have just been said to make me feel better. It did calm me down and help me get grounded and kind of stay focused. But I don't know. I don't know if she's telling me the truth or not. I kind of hope so.
Yeah. So
I wish I could control my.
It's kind of one of those things where she says, you're not ready. Like she's saying you're not ready, but that's also a very broad, like humanity as a whole.
That's what she was meant. Yeah,
ready.
Absolutely.
So she's saying it's not the hardware, it's the software that's not ready. Maybe. You think that could be?
Not the hardware, the software.
It's the software that's not ready.
Yeah.
The body and the brain, it's like we make up all these excuses. By the way, the brain is making up these excuses for itself. So that's in its
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Is it the hardware or the software?
Yeah. That's not ready. Like which one is it? And that's bring it full circle back to that idea of, is this the end of the world or a new beginning? And I choose to be on the new beginning, and the power of manifestation is that what you listen to and what you choose to spend your time on will become your future and your reality.
Absolutely.
If you spend all your time talking about and listening to doom and gloom, it's so easy to watch. Like we were talking about at the beginning of the show, these fear porn on the news and stuff. And that's really fun. It's like, ooh, it's like McDonald's, as Jim Gaffigan says. But man, if you just get past that, it's such an immediate, once you get that gratification, that dopamine from all the bad shit happening in the world, it's gone like that. And then now you feel like shit. And now you feel like humanity is lost. Like, that's no fun.
Well, it always ends, right? You can't have rebirth or growth without destruction. Ooh. Everything in the universe comes from, you think about an explosion. If we talk about this Big Bang, this violent explosion event, right? Mm-hmm. You have all this birth. Oh. And then you have planets and stars and galaxies.
Little wheezy IPA.
And they all eventually die. The suns explode. And then what do? They create gases that then collect and create new stars or become black holes or, create planets. Like, without destruction, there is no rebirth or growth. So, it's
balance. It's a balance.
This is for Dave Scott. It's fractal. It's fractal, dude.
Yeah, dude.
I'm a big fractal guy. Me and Simeon Hine.
Yeah.
we are fractal kind of people. Yeah, I'll tell you, I got fascinated with fractals. It's crazy you mentioned that.
It's fascinating.
My kid was in college. He was at Michigan State University, and we're sitting around at dinner one night, and he starts telling me all about fractals. And I'm like, I never heard of that before. And before you know it, I'm in the kitchen, I'm cutting up a head of cabbage and I'm counting all the stuff. And I became obsessed with this. And then I started looking at, views of the forest. And there's just a million examples. And a pine cone is a great example. A pineapple, and you can count the math and do the
golden ratio.
Forget the formula. Yeah, the ratio. Is that the golden ratio?
I think that's the golden ratio, where
the Fibonacci
sequence.
Fibonacci numbers. Yep. Yeah.
So I recently took a photograph of a pine cone, and man, it's crazy how perfect it is.
It is, and you wonder, why? It's just unanswered questions.
Like, nature did that. Like, man had nothing to do with that whatsoever,
The man would love to take credit for that, though.
Well, you know what Elon Musk says? He says the odds of us living in a simulated universe are 99%. There's a 1% chance that we're not. He's a smart guy.
I would believe literally anything he tells me.
I would too.
He's so calculated. I think we talked about it maybe a couple episodes ago. But Terry, have you noticed this? That like, it's almost as if everything he says, he's getting messages from the future. Don't say that, or you're going to ruin the timeline.
Right.
Like, don't say too much.
I got to tell you, I couldn't afford the car, but I sure could afford the stock because I knew Tesla was going places.
Dang, you got Bitcoin and Tesla, dude? Jeez, that's awesome.
Yeah, we're going to have a conversation.
Yeah, you're going to have to be my stockbroker, bro.
Seriously.
I need to give a disclaimer here that I'm not a licensed financial advisor, and nothing I say should be taken as financial advice.
He does know a lot about pine cones, ladies and gentlemen.
I invested for the first time like 2 years ago, and
that doesn't mean buying a vest, Joe.
I should not have done that. Let's just say it would have been better spent like under the mattress of my bed. Let's just say that.
What'd you do?
I don't know. So I take that back. I bought some weed stock that did pretty good. And then like Tractor Supply, because I shop there. And for some reason in my head, I thought since I go to Tractor Supply all the time, my stock would rise, but it doesn't work that way. I go there like at least almost every day of the week almost to buy something.
But your head's in the right place. You're almost paying yourself by investing in places that you shop yourself. I mean, I invested in Academy Sports and Outdoors, and that stock is on the rise. I don't know. So
Yeah, real good. You know, I had the thought this would be a great time to buy stock in cruise ships.
Ooh,
Oh, yeah.
that's very
Yeah.
People are going to be dying to leave their dang houses and get
Oh
into.
God, yes. Airline stocks are going to go back up.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about just pulling that money out and investing it in some land and starting a cemetery.
A cinementary?
Yep. That's something people always need, right?
That is true.
You know
Damn.
what? I had
That's
that
really-
same thought, and I'm dead serious. I thought about buying some acreage,
Yeah.
and I watched this woman on YouTube who was a mortician in California. Caitlin Doughty is her name, and she's got great videos, a ton of them on YouTube, and it's called Ask the Mortician. And she's talking about a movement to go back to natural burial, where, you know, instead of a big elaborate, instead of a casket, instead of, you know, 8 gallons of embalming fluid that leaches into the environment,
Yeah.
have a natural, you know, maybe a simple wooden coffin, and a burial in nature without a vault.
Yeah.
There'd be no need for a vault. There'd be no need for a casket, just a box, and offer people at a very affordable price a simple, natural, you know, all natural burial where your body just returns to the soil as opposed to being preserved in a box.
I think that'd be a great idea. I
Heck
mean,
yeah.
have you seen the wraps that they have now where they sew in fungal spores?
I got to pee, guys.
So
sorry.
whenever you are buried, that you know, mushrooms will then grow, and then like you'll eventually turn into a tree.
Yeah.
It's pretty
heard of
neat.
that.
It's pretty
Yeah.
neat. But you know, for some reason, I mean, this and this always like kind of hits my mind too when we discuss death, is like, you know, going back to just ancient cultures, the fascination with the preservation of your body is very interesting to me. Like, what was, you know, I mean, their thoughts, obviously, right? You know, what if the gods come back and they come to pick you up? I mean, you want to look good, you know? You want to be you want to be preserved, you know? Like, what if they bring you back to life and now you're all decomposed? What good are you then? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, now we think about like, well, your body is just this vessel for whatever it is that is inside of you, your soul, your consciousness, whatever that is. Then it doesn't matter what your body does afterwards.
You know, that's true. I mean, I used to think that, you know, I have it in my world to be cremated. And I used to think that was an environmentally friendly thing, as opposed to pouring 8 gallons worth of formaldehyde that leaches into the ground.
Right.
And then I learned how much fossil fuel it takes to burn a human body,
Right.
and how much chemicals go into the air, including, you know, stuff, cavities from your teeth that are filled with, you know, amalgam. Some of them filled with, you know, there's all kinds of toxic stuff that comes out too.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, it burns a lot of fossil fuels, puts out a lot of exhaust, and the idea of a natural burial in this, you know, bucolic, nice forest kind of setting, you know, might be the kind of thing you could sell. You might make a lot of money doing that.
Absolutely. I mean, what a trip! Like, what a weird, a trippy thought to think that like you're just energy, right? Energy can't be created nor destroyed. It's always existed. Like, you are just this energy. This your body is you know, uses a lot of that energy. But like once you're gone, like, can you imagine like being put in a forest, and then like if your energy transfers into a tree, like I feel like everything has some sort of sentience to it. Whether it be a rock or whatever. I think that there's some sort of sentience to everything. And it's always crossed my mind, like, if I had like a natural burial and I turned into a big tree, can you imagine just standing in the forest for 600 years?
I am all that is powerful.
Like, what a life that would be, you know? Very
I saw a guy on a TED Talk one time who said that, it was a woman. She said that she did research and she can prove that these trees communicate with each other.
Oh, yeah.
That there's a network underground and their roots connect. And You cut down one tree in a forest and the others are going to react.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. They do. And you can physically see that as well, you know? I do.
You know, you said rock, that maybe a rock could have some kind of consciousness to it. I was with Whitley Strieber, Yvonne Smith, and some other people at Pine Ridge, Lakota Native American Reservation in South Dakota in 2019. And we were the guests of Chief Dallas Eagle and his wife, Becky. And he's been a Lakota chief all his life. And there's this big bear rug in the middle of this like meeting room that they have. And in the middle of this rug, there's a rock about the size of a softball. And I said, hey, Chief, what's up with the rock? And he says, that's Father Rock, Grandfather Rock. And he said, you know, when I have problems, sometimes I'll sit down and I'll talk with Grandfather Rock. And I said, how long have you had Grandfather Rock? And he said, I can't tell you in years, but I can tell you it's many generations.
Wow.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
Was it
It is.
Did it have crystals in it? It's some, like maybe quartz
No.
or
No, just a plain ordinary rock.
wow.
I mean,
That's really cool.
I mean, you think about a rock and it's like, well, I mean, what does a rock do? Well, I mean, if you think about it, a rock is that's hundreds, if not thousands of years of recorded history all inside of a rock.
Ooh.
You know, it's a record keeper. Like it keeps
That's
track
true.
of time. Like
Yeah.
a rock is a time capsule, and the stuff that it records, you know, when you talk to this rock, who's to say that rock isn't recording some sort of vibratory information in it? You know?
Sure, it's full of atoms. It's got electrons moving
Exactly.
around, just like you and I.
Exactly.
And who's to say those electrons that rock has also at one point, who's to say it didn't share that same electron in one of the cells in someone's body or
right,
someone's
with
brain?
quantum entanglement, right? There's atoms that are
Quantum entanglement.
that are across the universe that are probably entangled with that rock. So any information that rock absorbs is entangled somewhere across the universe. That information is being transferred somehow, some way, somewhere.
Yeah.
Leave it to us three to make a conversation about a rock more interesting than than I've ever had.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting stuff. It's stuff that, you know, a lot of people don't think about,
Yeah. It's,
Yeah.
it's
but we do. Yeah.
yeah, I love it, dude. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that goes through our head like all the time. Like
Yeah. Mine too. Yeah.
yeah, dude. Like there's just so much. I feel like we're getting close. We always feel like we're getting closer to the what's the answer. Every day, something new and something new. And man, there's so many distractions, especially now. Like going back to what we were talking about with all the news and stuff. But man, at the end of the day, what I enjoy is having these kinds of conversations where we're trying to put these puzzle pieces together. And it is, Dave, fractal. I think it is fractal, man. We're always going to be going even deeper and deeper. But hey, it feels good. And I feel like we should keep having these conversations.
Oh, absolutely, man. Terry, what are your thoughts on you know, these different beings? Me and Ben were talking about this the other day, and you know, the conversations are all over the place on these different beings. I mean, by this time you've heard of a million different kinds, right? Light beings, dimensional, interdimensional, you know, physical ones, extraterrestrial, extra dimensional. They all mean something a little bit different, right? You know, like just because in my mind, I think like, yeah, why couldn't they all exist on some plane, right? You have these light beings that are like highly dimensional. Then you have these interdimensionals that can go from wherever they are into our dimension. But then I also think of like these more physical type encounters that happen with people that, yeah, there might be just somebody in a you know, across the Milky Way that has that technology to actually come here in a physical manner. You know, what are your thoughts on the spectrum of these things? I mean,
I got an opinion on that, Joe. I do.
yeah.
I do. And, if you guys have heard of Helen Keller, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know who Helen Keller is.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows Helen Keller, who who was born. Actually, she could hear when she was born. She lost her sight and her hearing when she was about 18 months old due to scarlet fever.
Right.
So she couldn't see, couldn't hear, and she could only experience the world through taste and touch. And I think we're kind of like Helen Keller. I heard this. I've heard this many times. I bet you have too. And that is that you take 100% of the universe, mathematically speaking, and 6% of it, everything that we can see with our instruments, X-rays, the universe, dogs, cats, planets, everything accounts for 6% of the universe. So 94% or 95, depending on who you listen to, is either dark matter or dark energy.
Mm-hmm.
And they call it dark for a reason. They don't know what the hell it is. They have
know.
no idea.
Right.
They can account for it mathematically. They know that it has to exist. But we don't have the slightest idea what could be in there, what that could be. I mean, could heaven be in there? Mm-hmm. Could there be civilizations of extra-dimensional beings in there? I mean...
Because we can't sense it. We can't measure it yet.
We can't measure it. We can't even see it. We only know it's there because it has an effect that we can measure gravitationally on other objects and celestial bodies.
I think you're speaking to something kind of awesome. Well, it is awesome because you started out with our senses, our smell, sight, touch, all that. But mathematically speaking, or physics and writing it down on paper and communicating that to other human beings that can also understand that language, it's almost the same, on the same line, where so the dark matter thing, we know that it exists because we can observe the reaction. So that tells me that we only confirm something is real because of the reaction it makes to another thing. And that's fundamentally how we observe everything, right? Like relativity. That's how we observe stuff, because it has a reaction to something else. Nothing can just simply be. There's no mathematic equation for something. It has to be in relation to something else.
Because of something else.
Yeah. That's kind of trippy to think about. That's kind of a fractal idea too.
Yeah, it is. It is. A lot of space out there. I mean, lots of stars, but man, human brain has trouble. My human brain has trouble wrapping my mind around the distances that are involved.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You ever just like go out on a dark night, and look up and you're just like, some of that stuff, it doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
And we still see it. Like that star I'm looking at doesn't even exist. It's been gone for millions of years, and here I am looking at it still.
It's a time machine.
It really is. Terry, do you I know you have a phobia of walking across open fields, and
I do.
And you still don't do that. Do you ever just stargaze at night, maybe out on your porch? Do you ever just go out and look, or do you kind of stay away from that too?
Not very often. I spent 5 years living in American Samoa when I worked down there, and that's in the Southern Hemisphere. Mm-hmm. It's the only U.S. territory in the Southern Hemisphere. And the night sky down there, it's just a little bitty tiny island about the size of D.C. with 67,000 people on it. But I lived on the beach the first 2 years I was there, and then we moved to a village, and I lived on the side of this dormant volcano. And so in my backyard, there was zero light pollution. And I mean, the stars were just incredible.
Dang.
And they're different than they are here.
Yeah.
You know, the Southern Cross, that thing is real and it's beautiful. You know, and was there a long time, and I felt comfortable at night looking at the sky there. I never saw a single thing I couldn't account for in the sky. Never saw a UFO, never saw anything that I couldn't attribute to being something valid, something, known.
Right.
But then come back to the States and it's all a different matter. So I don't know.
Ooh, man. What is it about the United States? I know it happened. I mean, I know there's all kinds of stuff happening all over the world, but maybe is it just us thinking we're...
Well, I mean, the rest of the world is pretty open about the topic. I think what makes the United States so interesting it's secrecy.
Yeah.
And the taboo of the subject as a whole that, it probably makes a lot of people uneasy, like when we talk about it. I mean, it's just now starting to become something that people are starting to open their minds about, here in the States. But I mean, you go down to Peru and they're like, yeah, the sky people. Or
yeah, what do you mean?
Like that's just
what do you want to know?
Regular conversation to them. Like they believe that stuff. It's not something that's like hidden or secret or taboo. It's part of their culture. A lot of these,
Well, and look at Puerto Rico. That's another little spit of an island, but it's in the northern hemisphere. It's got all kinds of UFO activity, and I think that's where the chupacabra originated.
Yeah. Somewhere in the skies, Ryan Sprague just posted a whole episode on Puerto Rico, and that's where it originated, the chupacabra. And that stuff has been happening there forever.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, but the difference is they talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
stuff
the
has been
difference.
happening here forever, but nobody talks about it, right? I don't want to lose my job. I don't want people to think I'm crazy. Like I don't want to, lose my house and get, thrown in a padded room.
Yeah.
But
you know what though? There's a lot of military stuff around Puerto Rico.
There is.
There is none around American Samoa.
Right.
So maybe that's part of their interest too.
That's a very interesting point, for sure. For sure.
Dude.
Wow. Do you think that your Devil's Den encounter maybe had any military relation to it? Like, I don't know, My Labs type stuff?
I've thought about that. I thought, well, what if this experience that we had wasn't even real? What if Toby and I had an experience that was manufactured somehow?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And toward what an end? I don't know. Why did I end up with these crazy things in my legs? I don't know. Somebody has an agenda. I don't know who. The military. Maybe. I don't fully trust our government.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
wait,
you're talking, just to people like Melinda Leslie and like her whole stories and everything that she talks about, and then even like the Betty and Barney Hill story where they talk about seeing these two redheaded men that were in the craft or came out of the craft, and they had German shepherds, what looked to be like German shepherds with them,
and they had military garb on too.
And what was it? The Republic of Ireland, I guess, was an ally to Nazi Germany at the time. It was like a thing.
Yes, because they were against the British,
right? And so they're talking about the connection that with the technology that the Germans had, and the connection with this German shepherd and these two red-headed Irish-looking people that were on the craft, and maybe that's why Barney had a little bit more of a more traumatic experience than Betty, being an interracial couple back in the day, that there's some puzzle pieces that really kind of fit in to some of these stories, and it's just like, wow. And then you listen to people like Michael Schratt And you hear about all these, like, well, yeah, these breakaway civilizations. There is a whole nother, space agency that's been flying to the moon since the 40s.
Yeah, have you heard about Michael Schratt's book and the things that he's talking, like the airship of what was it, like 1891 or something?
Yeah,
It was in Aurora, Texas. In 1897, I believe.
Yeah.
If you Google the Dallas Morning News at Aurora, Texas, you'll come up with the story. And it was a dirigible airship that was made silver. It was silver in color. And interestingly, I mean, the people that saw this ship, described it in terms that they would understand in 1897.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they had dirigibles then. And this was propeller driven. They said that it was propeller driven.
Yeah.
And it crashed into a windmill on a farm owned by some judge, and crashed. And the occupant on it died in the crash. And they said that the closest thing that Aurora, Texas at 1897 had to a scientist was a gentleman who worked for it was before the Weather Service. It was like the Meteorological Service or something. But what his job was to report barometric pressure, temperature readings, precipitation, to ship all that information by telegraph to Washington, D.C. So he was a weather observer for the government.
Why did they hire a tiny alien dude to do that job?
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Yeah. But this guy said that, in his opinion, that the occupant of the airship came from Mars.
Right.
Sounds like an assumption to me, but
it definitely does. It definitely does.
Certain.
Michael makes this really interesting connection where he talks about, like, yeah, Texas has one of the most famous airships, the crash, obviously, but
yeah.
During that time, how was like lots of sightings of these airships down in the Southwest.
There sure were.
Yeah, there was a whole bunch of them, and I forget the author that he had referenced in it, but he had
Jim Mars, I think.
With the Sonoma Air Group, I think is what it was called, where he had made the link to this a group of scientists that were pretty wealthy and way ahead of their time, and at the same time there was the gold rush that was happening, and the fastest way to transport this gold back to the East Coast was through these flying ships. And there's a lot of accounts of these ships coming over towns, and ropes would come down and people would come out and they would ask for water, and they looked like humans. They had like these rose-colored glasses on, and they heard laughter coming from these ships and things like that. But he was saying that it's possible that maybe there is this, secret group of people with these, really advanced scientists that figured this out. And from then on, they just kept going, and they created this space program. And then our current day space program is just kind of like a front for, for whatever it is that our government is doing, right? There's this, you have our government, and then you have those other people up top who kind of tell the world what's happening, what's going on.
The one that's in Michael Schratt's book is not the Aurora one. It's a different one, but it has like this steampunk looking ship and wings, and
people described it.
They described it as like these people were having a party on this airship, and like they were like, ha, yes, ha, the people down below, and like we're drinking and laughing,
speaking English.
Dude, to me that sounds like a breakaway civilization that's just like, what, let's just take a right here, I gotta pee. That they ended up in this small town and accidentally got seen.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's possible. It's also possible it's a screen memory too. I talk about, I got letters, I saw monkeys in my room. My cousin saw little clowns. I got letters from people who saw glowing orbs and little gray men, and a kid in El Paso I talked to on the phone who saw this globe of light, this orb of light come through the screen of his bedroom and would turn into a possum on two legs that stood upright and was like 3 foot tall and would communicate with him telepathically. And he could never remember what it told him.
Oh my God. So have you talked to anybody or spoken to anybody that talks about that? Okay. Apparently there's a species, there's the mantid species that often interacts with humankind in a humorous way. And that's who I guess, is behind some of these humorous things, like the possum thing that you're talking about. We heard a story, Joe. He's better at names. I'm terrible at names. But there's this gentleman who talks about a floating burrito coming into his room, and like, that was apparently some kind of screen memory thing. But apparently, like the mantis species is behind this humorous thing. They for some reason they understand that humor is a better way to communicate with humans. So yeah. I'm curious, did he say anything about what these entities, did he ever get a good look at them? Did they look like bugs or?
Yeah, this kid I talked to in El Paso was very clear. And what his mother did was, because the kid would scream some nights and just scream bloody murder and be terrified, right? And he told his mother that there's a possum that comes into my room. And she's like, well, how do you know what a possum looks like? And he said, well, I saw one dead in the backyard one day. And he said it's the same thing, but it walks on two legs and talks like a man. Whoa. Walks like a man. And but I had people email me and say, yeah, they saw globes of glowing orbs of light and owls, and lots of owls and deer. And one woman said she had Disney characters in her room that would talk to her at night. Whoa. So I think they got the ability to appear to us in a way we think is most benign, that won't be we won't freak out.
Dude, well, so I know this is like a traumatic thing for you, but I just got to know, like the monkey men, like that seems to me like not a benign thing. Like that is, to me, if there was like a chimpanzee, or I don't know if it's specific as that, or like a monkey, like that's a very strong animal. That doesn't seem like a fun thing. That would be very terrifying.
But yours is more of a circus monkey. Right?
Yeah, mine was more of a circus monkey, and I, as I said in the book, I took them as being kind of comical at first.
Yeah.
So I wasn't terrified of them, but then when I realized they were taking me, then I got scared of them. What was strange was once we got to wherever they took me, I wasn't scared at all. I mean, I had friends there. Sue was there. I was cool with that. That was fine. But there was something terrible, and I have no idea how they transported me from my bedroom to that place. But that was the unknown part about it, is I was always afraid that what if they didn't bring me back, or what if I get lost, or what if they take me someplace I didn't want to go?
But once you got there, I mean, things were pretty. You weren't afraid of being in the place once you got there, is that?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Felt very comfortable.
Yeah.
I think that's why I view Betty as a maternal figure, because she really was.
Yeah.
That's another commonality between a lot of experiencers, is there always seems to be this one that is there that kind of keeps you calm. And
yes.
A lot of people say that it's usually like they don't know if it's male or female, but it always has this maternal or like feminine energy about it that is there with you, that talks to you or keeps you calm, and that's super interesting.
Yeah, it's just like the entity that spoke to my wife telepathically and said, "Everything's fine, go back to sleep."
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Dude. Oh, that telepathic thing. I mean, there's a reason why I asked you about it, because I mean, Joe shared his orange globe thing.
Yeah.
And it was around the same time that we were starting this project we're working on, and man, I don't know what it was, man. It could have been a dream, but I don't think it was. But I had this voice. I didn't hear it audibly, but I understood it. It was unlike any experience that I've ever, but it was calming. Like I was able to go back to sleep because I woke up kind of terrified. And yeah, it's so what it said, just over and over was like, you are a light bringer. You bring the light. And I just found comfort in that. I just didn't know what that meant, but it felt like it was a good thing. Like, hey, you're fine. Stop worrying about it. Your anxiety is you're not doing yourself any favors by being anxious, waking up scared. I just felt this thing just very, very calm, and it just kept playing in my head, man. So that's why I asked you earlier, did your wife hear this audibly, or did she feel it, or what's the word for that?
She said she heard it audibly. Well, she heard it in her head, quote, crystal clear as any spoken word, but she didn't hear it through her ears. So
right. That's kind of
that's the way I experienced it. I heard them in my head, but not with my ears. So
right. It's so hard to describe, but that's the best we can do, right? Like, I've never had anything happen before or after that is that specific, but man, it resonates with me when you speak about those kinds of things, because it's.
I have a friend, Dr. Bruce Solheim, who's a PhD, teaches history at Citrus College in Glendora, California, and fascinating guy. He was an Army helicopter pilot and got out, and then got a degree in history, and then got a PhD, and now he teaches history. And he's about my age. He's about ready to retire, and he's been psychic as hell all his life. I mean, and his mother was extremely psychic, and he says all the time, "Be the light." That's how he ends his correspondence.
What?
Be the light.
Whoa, dude! Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. I give you his email. You're welcome to call him, talk to him.
Thanks for giving me freaking like you pulled the feathers out of my damn turkey arm, dude. Damn.
Be the light. Yep.
Wow,
dude.
Yeah, it's interesting. I talked to my older brother, who's very religious, Bible loves. I mean, dude, best guy you'll ever meet, but he's very, very adamant about what's in the Bible. Is it? So
sure.
I asked him, hey, what do you think about this? Because we love having these conversations like about aliens and UFOs and conspiracies and things like that. Not that they're in the same genre, but that's just the stuff we like to talk about. I mentioned the light thing, and he said, man, that's Satan. You got a spirit, you got a demon attached to you. That's a light. Lightbringer is in the
good
biblical term. I guess in the biblical term, like Satan is supposed to be like the light bringer or whatever.
Well, the false light.
The false, yeah, okay.
Is what it is. He's a light bearer, but it's supposed to be the false light.
Yeah, it's something having to do with Saturn, right? Like it's like the false light or whatever.
Satanus.
But my personal experience, it did not seem evil. I don't know.
Well, I've always thought of the light as being warm and calm and good, and the opposite of darkness.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just can't see how light could be negative. I just don't see that.
Yeah. Maybe I'm getting I'm not quoting him exactly, but
no, it definitely does talk about that. The false prophet, there will be a false light bringer. The Lucifer is known as I forget what star it is.
I think it's is it serious?
No, I forget what star it is, but they talk about being the false light, Satan as the false light. But there's so many like interpretations that you can take from these scriptures that it's just like it spins your head a little bit.
It's all over the place.
But I think that internal gut feeling that you have. Like Samantha had talked about this, like, how do you feel when you have these experiences? Do you have a negative emotional reaction to it, or do you have a warm, positive feeling? Now, even if you have a warm, positive feeling, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be freaked out, right? But
sure.
Does the emotional connection or your gut give you a negative or a positive energy?
Yours
seems pretty positive.
It does seem pretty positive. I almost like to deflect it back to Terry. Like, dude, in your experience, did it always feel positive did it always feel negative, or was there certain times that it's somewhere in between?
You know, you mean talk about the experiences as a whole, taken as a whole.
Yeah.
In the totality of the thing. Yeah.
When you were taken by.
Yeah. My attitude has changed. 1977, obviously I was hurt. I was burned and traumatized and, suffered some PTSD, suffered some pain. And I was pretty angry about that. But my attitude has kind of softened over the years. And I think, if they really wanted to hurt me, they could have hurt me badly. If they wanted to, they could have killed me. They could have took me someplace. They could have done all kinds of bad, negative things to me. But like when they took me into that room with the porcelain table and, did something to my lower back that hurt like hell. When I walked in, I didn't walk in, but I was carried in, the room had a definite clinical vibe to it. It felt medical. It feel like a torture chamber.
Like a dungeon.
And the insectoid thing that hurt my back, I always picture him wearing a white lab coat. I don't think he wore a white lab coat. I think that's the mental projection that I have of him.
Right. Yeah.
And, I think if I could sit down and have a beer with him today, I think his attitude would be, hey, man, just doing my job, no hard feelings.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the vibe that I get. I mean, that's not to say I'm sure there aren't pure evil aliens out there. There probably are. The ones I ran into weren't benevolent. Maybe they were, they changed my life, but I mean, they increased my intuition. Let's say, I won't say that would never say that I'm psychic. I wouldn't go that far, but my gut will steer me right in the right direction. That's come in handy in life. And maybe that's a gift that they gave me, compensation prize. I don't know.
Yeah. There's two things that we discussed about that. One is, right, without the destruction, you can't have this rebirth. So maybe the scary beginning part of that is your trial to the rebirth, to you kind of changing your attitude about the whole thing. And then the second one is maybe it's also an upgrade to that software that we were talking about, the human software. The hardware is not the problem, it's the software. It is possibly they upgraded your software a little bit.
Yeah, you've downloaded the new version of Mac OS X, and you're running on one of those old, there was like different colors, like green and orange and pink and shit.
I remember.
Yeah.
You couldn't run on Windows because you would have to update every day.
I think I was upgraded to the new iOS X, iOS. Yeah, but my hardware is actually a Windows. It's a PC.
I got one of each. I bought an Apple because I thought it'd be more intuitive and easier to use, and it's not.
Oh,
I'm a Windows guy.
You two Windows guys can have your own chat. Yeah, you guys.
I think my problem is with technology in general, not with Apple in specific. But
well, see, you've seen the other side of it, the better side of like telepathy. Gets shit done. Like, you get what I mean. But you telling that to a computer, like, yeah, just do what I want. Just read my mind. Once you've seen that, it's kind of hard to backtrack a little bit. Like, try going back to a Razor cell phone, dude.
Oh,
I don't know.
I had lots of opportunities over the years. I had secretaries who offered to, let me show you how to do that. And I'm like, no, I don't want to know. That's what they pay you for. It's your job.
Right.
And, that was not the right attitude. I should have been open, and I could have probably learned a lot and been a lot more comfortable with technology today had I been open to that. But at the time, I didn't see it as my job. I saw my job, in the courtroom or somewhere else. I didn't see that I saw that as clerical. And but there's a huge difference.
Yeah.
It's not like, 1970 when people were using an IBM Selectric typewriter and anybody could learn how to type.
Yeah.
This is a whole different animal. This is technology.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Patrice O'Neill has a great bit where he talks about how when he was younger, he was like, man, I used to always see these dudes and they would be going to typing class. And I would always make fun of them and talk about how gay they were for going to typing class. And now I'm a grown-ass man and I can't type. And I need to type. He's like, and now they all make fun of me because I don't know how to type. It's kind of that whole thing. Like, it's not my job. You do it. But
You go to typing class?
Little did you know that your life would revolve around a keyboard and technology.
Who would have thunk it? No kidding.
Right. Yeah. Right, man. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Dude, I cannot believe we have hit this 3-hour mark.
I know, seriously.
That's
yeah.
insane. That's insane.
Are we at the... Oh, my God, we are. I need to go to bed. It's past my bedtime.
Terry, man, before we end this, dude, I want you to just let everybody know where they can get your book and how they can contact you if they have any questions, anything like that. Just plug yourself, man. This is your time.
All right, I'm into it. I can do that. Yeah. If you want to see some cool pictures, go to terrylovelace.com. These stories that I got from other people. There we go. Yes. I'm in the process of making that an audiobook. There'd be an audiobook now, but the studio was off limits because of COVID. They shut it down, so I couldn't get in there to get the sound booth.
I love that you did the first book and you read the audiobook, man. I freaking love that you did that.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I also love that when I'm reading, I'm reading it in your voice.
Yes, same.
Yes, and it makes it dude. And you're such a good writer because there's so much humor in the book too. You know, it's like an obvious dry humor, but it's so funny, dude. Like it's comical as well as informational. And I mean, the valleys of emotion that are in the book, you're happy, you're sad, you're kind of freaked out, then it's funny. And dude, it's such an awesome book, man. You did such a good job, and congratulations on all of your success with this, man. I mean, well-deserved, absolutely. Thanks, well-deserved.
Yeah,
I really appreciate that. I appreciate you having me back on. I every time I'm with you guys, I always have a good time. So
that's good
I'll be
stuff.
glad when they get conferences up and running again.
I know, man.
Yes.
I know. Me too. Well, I mean, this obviously isn't going to be the last time that you're on the show, and
you might be working on this project we're working on with us too.
Yep. So we'll get in
probably
contact.
Gonna see you soon.
Yeah,
with the documentary.
Let me know.
Well,
Let me know more. Yeah,
I mentioned the documentary you're working on, dude. Man, it would be awesome
Yes.
to have you in it, dude. It would be great.
Oh, I'd love to participate.
Yeah,
that would be good stuff. So we'll definitely keep in touch with you. Probably here pretty soon. So we'll get some dates together for you and we'll get that all set up.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I'll be around. You guys are just around the corner from me.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. All right. Well, Terry, man, this has been absolutely awesome. Thank you for coming on and hanging out with us, dude.
I appreciate it very much. And nice to have a chance to talk to your awesome audience. I appreciate it.
Heck yeah.
They do too, man.
Receiving a lot of love, and man, people love you, man. So yeah, anytime you want to come back on, I mean, we'll be talking soon. So we'll figure
Yeah, we got each other's email. We'll be in touch.
We got it.
Cool, man. All right, Terry.
All right. Good night.
We'll talk to you later, buddy.
All right, brother. Peace.
Bye. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Sick.
Yeah, dude.
Hey,
Man, Terry's awesome, dude.
Let's give some shout outs to all the people in the chat room. Sorry, this is our first time going live.
This is so hard, like going back and forth between the chat and the bad thing.
I don't know how other people are like can read every comment, pay attention, plus type back, and especially when they're by themselves, so impressive. But let's give some shout outs to some people in the chat, to everybody in the chat room. How many we got in there?
Yeah, we got 12. Ooh, that's
Well, we can shout
twice
out
as many.
every 12 of them.
Yes.
Yes, dude.
Cloudy with a Chance of UFOs. Cloudy with a Chance of UFOs has been with us since the beginning and has been keeping the chat alive, might I add.
Yes.
So thanks for all of your awesome. Man, I wish that I could multitask and because so many good questions. Everybody, not just Cloudy, but everybody had such good questions.
Just know we apologize that we didn't get to your questions. It's like I said, it's our first time. Thank you for having the questions.
It's our first time.
As we get better,
Be gentle.
We're gonna be able to do that a lot better, man. Hey, a class favorite, William the Kid Townsend. Yeah. Hey, and our man Lewis is in the chat. Hey, I hope you've been enjoying those Hot Wheel videos I sent you the other day.
Hell yeah, dude.
Oh man,
That's what's up.
Sovereign Cosmic Wildman.
Wildman.
How's it going?
Do you say Wildman or Wildman?
Oh, it's Wildman.
Wildman. Yeah.
Just like the other day when we were listening to the Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters.
Remember the Foo Fighters?
Yeah, dude. Foo Fighters. Who else we got? Tammy. Yeah. Tammy Flanagan. I mean, yeah. Thanks for hanging out and posing some really challenging questions and sharing a lot of your experiences and stuff tonight. Man, I wish we need to get you on the show too. It sounds like everybody. I mean, geez, everybody here is like got an amazing story. So I
Who
feel
else
like
we got in there? Any,
let's see.
Spaced Out Radio was in the house.
Dave from Spaced Out Radio.
The Unidentified Celebrity Review. What's up, dude? Hey, we'll be getting in contact pretty soon.
Yeah, bro. We'll email you, but we'd love to have you on in 2 weeks or so. Like 2 weeks. That'd be awesome.
Totally,
Dude.
totally.
No.
Totes my goat.
Totes, dude.
Hey, look over there. What's up? He said buy silver, and that's probably a good idea.
Oh, I love that.
Do I know that for sure? No.
That's what we were talking about, like currency and shit, right? That was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about all kinds of stuff tonight, dude.
Dude, we talked through the gamut, bro.
We did.
Gee.
We really did, man. Who else
That was
we got
awesome.
here?
You know, like I feel like we
Hey, Mickle and a Pickle's in here.
Who?
What's up, dude?
Mickle
Yeah.
and a Pickle.
I think that's Australia.
Oh, nice.
Australia, I think, is where Mickle and a Pickle's from.
That's awesome.
What else we got? Oh.
Jennifer.
Yeah.
Thurston.
What's up, Maria Allen?
Oh, Maria Allen asked the question about being a starseed, and
You did.
I did ask it. Okay. I don't think I gave her credit though, because she totally sparked that question.
Smokin' Joe. What's up, Smokin' Joe?
Oh, that's what's up.
That's kind of like me, dude. My name's Joe, and I'm smoking some ribs on Saturday. Yep, and I'm smoking some bowls.
How dare you?
And I'm smoking hot.
I mean, the ladies will agree. I'm coming. Dude. Are you really doing? Are you doing ribs on Saturday?
I'm smoking ribs, dude, and I might get a tri-tip. I don't know yet. I'm probably gonna get some chicken.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do some jalapeno poppers.
Oh.
I'm probably gonna throw some corn on there.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, dude. I don't know yet. I might do some pork loins.
Oh.
I don't know if I have the money.
That's a lot. But do you have a big enough grill for all that meat?
No, but
You gotta do it in phases.
Some things take longer than others, so I'm gonna start the ribs and get that going, and slowly throw on some other things. I might do a couple steaks.
That's a lot of meat.
It is.
Pork loin, steaks, ribs.
I mean, dude, there's gonna be like at least 4 of us there, dude.
Dude, I mean, you're the only person I hang out with right now, so I'm not inviting anybody. I'm gonna get as much of this as that food. This pos.
Homie Dill's gonna be there.
Oh, almost he did. What's
Young
up?
Joshua's gonna be there.
Young Josh will be there, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my! I haven't seen him in a long time. Long ass time.
Lady's gonna be there.
Oh, that's right. He does. He's got a dude. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
He's always flying solo. So we're all growing up. Who knew?
Yeah. It's gonna be nice.
It's gonna be really cool. All right. Well, let's see. Oh, cloudy with a chance of UFO says my mouth is watering. I'm fucking starving. I'm really hungry. I'm gonna go to Whataburger.
You go to Whataburger?
I mean, not when you're gonna have the barbecue. I mean, like tonight.
I was gonna say you better not go to Whataburger before the barbecue.
Dude, sorry, dude. I'm so full. I know you invited me, but like, I just ate.
Well, get the fuck out. You have to eat. You have to eat, or you gotta leave. One of the two.
Well, I'll probably eat. I'll eat.
Heck yeah, man. Hey, if we missed you in the chat, we missed your name. It wasn't on purpose.
Yeah,
we're dummies. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm running on Linux. I'm pretty sure I spelled Linux wrong.
Did you?
I did UX. I don't know. Linux. Is it Linux or Linux? Linux.
I thought that was a like an air conditioning unit.
But it's also an operating system, I think. No, I spelled it right. Yeah. Linux.
Heck yeah, dude.
I'm freaking smart, man.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
Okay.
Well, sheesh, man.
Let's do the little Heminimi show. Oh, we got the music. Hold on.
We can. Yeah.
This was another episode of UFO Garage.
Talk to you next time.
Fresh beats. What? Yeah. Making some ribs. Yeah. I'm gonna smoke some eggs.